Hello everyone, my name is Masterstarman, and ever since I was a kid, I've been a big fan of the Kirby Right Back at Ya anime series, sometimes referred to as Hoshi no Kabi in Japan, or Kirby of the Stars. For many years and many Saturday mornings as a kid, this show kept me glued to my TV screen, just wondering what the hijinks of Kirby and all his lovable friends would be for that week, wondering what monsters or abilities would show up, what schemes King Dedede would be up to. And simply put, it's a show I love to watch, and I still do. I wish it had a much more widespread release, but that's a story for another day. Still though, as someone who's seen this on so many low-quality bootlegs for decades though, I just thought it would be fun to make this video now. I want to go through every single episode, ranking every single one of them worst to best. Now, this should go without saying, but this is just my personal opinion. And I probably have a few fan-favorite episodes rather low on the list, and a few kind of questionable picks probably really high up that most people would probably rank way lower. If you disagree with that, feel free to politely and kindly express your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you guys think about that. Now, there's 100 episodes of this show, but I'm actually making a small rule here. If an episode is considered a two-parter, I'm actually going to combine them for a single entry on this list. It may seem a little unfair since most of the two-parters are actually really good, but usually the way most of these episodes works was you'd have one episode dedicated to setup, and then part 2 would be the eventual monster battle. I don't think it'd be fair to put a bunch of part 1s so low on this list and then have all their respective part 2s so much higher, since they're often both two parts of a much larger picture. As a result, there's actually going to be 93 episodes I'm ranking instead. Oh, and I'm not going to count the pilot episode or Kirby 3D either. The pilot, I really don't feel it's fair to count because it's a pilot. And it's also very different from the rest of the show. And as far as the 3D special, well, I'll just say it was a very welcome reunion for the show at a time when I honestly never thought we would ever see it again. I distinctly remember it coming out on the 3DS video service about 5 years after the English dub had originally ended. It's a really weird special, and I'd probably only rank it somewhere in the middle if I had to rank it, but it's still nice to see regardless. Lastly, I'll be referring to everything going by the English dub names, and because of copyright nonsense, I probably won't be showing many clips here, just mostly slideshows and talking about this. Hope you understand because of, copyright nonsense and all that fun stuff. With all that being said, it's been fun to look back and reminisce at one of my all-time favorite shows, so let's get to it. This is every episode of Kirby Right Back at Ya, ranked.
Right back at ya! Yeah!
Number 93, The Pillowcase. It's an episode where everyone has nightmares because of naughty stuffed pillows. It's a clip show episode at a time when there's barely a dozen episodes of the show. This one's a sleeper. Number 92, Whale of a Tale. King Dedede and Escargoon attempt to turn a whale into a submarine. It's an episode about whale watching. It doesn't have any sort of a fight scene. Honestly, I really don't remember this one at all, to tell you the truth. Number 91, Caterpillar Thriller. This is an episode I really actually want to like. In this one, Dedede attempts to cause a sneezing fit pandemic by bringing a giant worm monster from another nearby island, and it soon eventually evolves into a giant moth that causes even more trouble. It's literally a Mothra spoof in a Kirby episode. But what holds it back? There's no fight! Even if it doesn't have to be a monster Kirby defeats, there should have been a fight! It's Mothra! Number 90, Watermelon Felon. An episode where Dedede tries to frame Kirby over a false crime. I don't think this one's all that interesting. Number 89, Something to Sneeze At. Dedede is annoyed that everyone's sick with the cold. In the end, he gets his just desserts and gets sick when everyone else starts to get better. Number 88, The Empty Nest Mess. Dedede attempts to turn Dynachick into a monster with this new serum, but despite this presence, there's actually no real battle in this one. There's a future episode that does this idea much better. Number 87, Escargon. A monster hides inside Escargoon and causes everyone except Kirby to forget about him altogether. It has some funny Meta Knight moments here and there, but not a lot happens otherwise. Number 86, Don't Bank on It. Dedede sets up a bank system with some fake dolls that like to hypnotize and steal cash from everyone. It backfires because the Dedede doll is basically voodoo, and Dedede does the same thing that the dolls do. There's some funny moments, but yeah, this is another episode that just exists. We do get a funny moment of Dedede getting sucked into Kirby's dimension, though. That's a really weird thing. Number 85, Escargoon Squad. An episode where everyone pranks Dedede for all his misgivings. In the end, he sees a ghost that makes him pay off his debt. Has a few funny moments throughout. Number 84, The Thing About the Ring. I think you get the point by now. I'm honestly just not a big fan of these filler, no battle type episodes. Whereas there are some funny moments throughout them, but for the most part, they just don't interest me as much as most of the other episodes of the show. Though, I can acknowledge that some people might like them for breaking up the formula. Anyways, this one we actually get some more backstory on Cerebrum and Ladylike, Tiff and Tuff's parents here, and it involves a search for a wedding ring and this weird nose monster. Interestingly, this episode was actually delayed super late in the dub, airing over 4.5 years after its initial release date, and rather being the 17th chronological episode, it was 94th in the dub. Damn! Talk about a delay. Number 83, Shell Shocked. An episode where Dedede tries cracking Escargoon's shell because he wants to see him naked. Honestly, this one's really weird and messed up, and especially so because this is a very late episode of the show. I do really like the monster design in this one, though, and Hammer Kirby is always super iconic to see. The fight alone really saves it and holds it from being lower on the list, but I think it's still just a really mid-Kirby episode otherwise, though I think there's also a bit more of special circumstance with this one because of its original airing, as when this episode originally aired, they actually replaced it with this week's baseball for some stupid reason, I don't know, and coincidentally as a kid I think I actually had to play baseball when it re-aired a year later in 2006. Basically, this episode was considered lost media for years until someone found it in late 2015, making it, funny enough, the last episode I had ever actually seen of this show. And yeah, that actually kind of stings when it's kind of a mid-episode to begin with. Number 82, Buccaneer Birdie. I want to like this episode a lot more than I do, but it mainly focuses on Takori, who's usually pretty unlikable. Even for starring in this one, I just don't like this green bird. Pitch, you are not, I'm sorry to say. The monster fight also saves this one, and Mirror Kirby is awesome, make no mistake there. Fun fact, they actually reused this entire fight scene for the Fight for the Foxbox special, if you can remember that. Which is actually where I first saw this, long before I ever watched the episode. I got nothing else to say on the rest of it, though. Number 81, Dental Dilemma. I never minded this episode, but I know it's a sour point for a lot of people, particularly kids who hate dentists, and in fact, when I watched this with my friends a few years ago, this episode made everyone legit uncomfortable. So uncomfortable that everybody I was with actually had to go brush their teeth right after we finished watching this one. Like thing about the ring, this one was delayed for a very long time, and most people cite the dentist monster as the reason why. Yeah. Number 80, Hail to the Chief. This is an episode about Chief Bookham that ends with him trying to save Tuff from a burning volcano. It's a pretty intense way to end it, but I find the rest of the episode to be just kind of whatever to me. Number 79, Beware of Wispy Woods. It's great to establish everyone's favorite tree and Dedede's penchant for turning this whole forest into a golf course. It's a really bizarre concept, but it's an early on episode and it does its job well enough. I believe this was also the very first filler no-fight episode of the show as well, now that I think about it. Number 78, Power Ploy. King Dedede begins to sell some sort of super energy drink that makes everyone go wired. There's a monster Kirby fights, and there's actually a funny transformation into Stone Kirby, but these don't happen at the same time. He actually transforms when there's no fight going on, which I think this is the first and only time for this show, maybe barring one other instance we'll talk about later, but yeah, it's pretty funny. I know I'm going to catch a lot of flack for this one because this is usually seen as one of the fan favorite episodes, but at number 77, I have Kirby's pet peeve, aka the robot dog. I won't lie, this episode is really cute and has a lot of wholesome moments. Kirby gets a pet robot dog and basically proceeds to do a bunch of cute stuff with it. But, and you can see where this is going, this robot dog was designed by Nightmare Enterprises, and is actually a bomb meant to take out Kirby. In the end, the robot dog actually sacrifices itself, and I won't sugarcoat it. It is a pretty sad ending for this show, but I actually don't think this is the saddest episode of Kirby, if you could believe it. Even though Kirby can't replicate the feelings he had of the original robot dog, he still gets another one made by Gengu at the end that looks almost identical to the original. And though it never shows up in any future episodes, which is kind of odd, there's a few more episodes I actually find more emotional than this one. More on that later. I want to say for the record now, from here on out, this list is going to be very hard to rank, as many episodes from here on actually follow a very similar formula, and I feel like, honestly, from here until like the top 30 or 40 on the list, many of these episodes I can honestly say are interchangeable with my opinion. At number 76, I decided to put it to Junk Jam as my next one here, though. This is a weird episode involving aliens dumping garbage all over Cappy Town, and a clash against the Fire Lion. I don't have much more to say on that one there. Number 75. If this were a few years ago, I would have ranked this episode much higher, because I think this one's actually really clever. A Novel Approach is a perfect example of an episode that was at one point quite good and has aged like milk, and it's aged like milk in this case because it features a spoof of J.K. Rowling. Yeah, this episode is one giant Harry Potter spoof, and honestly for that, I really enjoy it. Even as someone who's never seen or read a Harry Potter book or movie, I think this one's a really, really clever and interesting episode. I really like the implementation of cleaning Kirby here, and riding the brooms like Kidditch I think is actually a really, really clever way of doing this spoof. But I know for many people it's simply just a hard one to watch because it features a character meant to resemble J.K. Rowling, and no, unfortunately, the scene of Meta Knight punching her is not the real one because that was actually a broom monster in disguise. Oh, and lastly, I'm only going to say this once, but trans rights are human rights. Number 74. If the last one is aged like milk, here's another episode that has also aged really terribly, but also really, really, really well. On topic of episodes I want to include much higher, we have Tuned Out. Now, I'm going to be upfront and admit this. I actually really like this one a lot, more than many of the next ones coming up, but it has one fatal flaw that everyone who knows this episode knows what I'm about to say. In this follow-up episode to the episode Cartoon Buffoon, more on that one much later, Dedede wants to get back into the animation business, but after the events of that last episode, nobody's ever going to want to work for him again. So instead, he hires a group of animators who stalk Tiff, a young child, and want to make her the subject of Dedede's next animation, much to literally everyone's dismay. Thankfully, they get arrested and apprehended very early on, and I'm just gonna cut to the chase here. The ending of this episode is so screwed up, I'm not even gonna show it. 4Kids had to censor this one, and you know what? I know it's the butt of all jokes. This is the one thing I am honestly so glad they censored. It's that messed up. Now, these are some serious black marks against this episode, but what I really, really enjoy about this episode, though, 2 words. Diz Walney. Dedede decides to order the legendary animator from NME, and everything about this part is pure golden. Diz Walney, obviously being a spoof of Walt Disney, decides to rig Kirby and Dedede to motion capture devices.
You can make a cartoon in just a few hours, and you don't need to pay any artists anymore.
Good riddance.
That is freaking golden. You cannot get me to hate this guy. Of course, this guy's actually a monster too, and a pretty cool designed one at that, and we get a really entertaining Spark Kirby fight as well. This is such a treat of an episode, and again, I would have included this one so much higher. If it was just this Diz Walney stuff, I'd have this in my top 20 easily. It's just that the damn perverted animator moment just holds this one back so much. Number 73, Recipe for Disaster. This is a really weird episode. Kirby gets drugged up by chemicals that make everyone look like food, and yeah. Also, this episode has one of my favorite dark humor lines in the entire show. I'll be the first to admit that.
A succulent duck. Slice it up ever so delicately, brush with oil, and place it on the grill.
I think I know that duck.
Number 72, a Chow Challenge. Number 71, the Big Taste Test. Number 70, the Hot Shot Chef. Number 69, Hunger Struck. Okay, I'm lumping all of these cooking episodes together because there's a lot of cooking episodes in Kirby, and there's more that I didn't mention. I'm lumping all of these ones together because they follow very fairly similar storylines, similar monsters. These all feature the cook ability, and honestly, I really don't have much to say about one that isn't applicable to the other. And although I do like the Hunger Strike Revolt of the Hunger Struck episode, that makes it more entertaining for me, but otherwise I don't really have much to add about these ones. There's other cooking episodes I like a lot more than these ones. Number 68, Waddle While You Work. It's a pretty entertaining episode where DDD decides to put Waddlezies for sale in a vending machine, only to end up homeless and trying to eat Dynachick again. I don't have too much to say other than that this is one of the ones included in the Kirby's Dream Collection, so that's something I suppose. Number 67, Mabel Turns the Table. This is a pretty entertaining episode, and I like it just for the Moses parody alone. I also like the little bit with Tornado Kirby at the end, being an episode without a monster, not even a transformation, but it's nice to see the dude powered up to his tornado form again. Very nice touch there. And it's a pretty good life lesson about how, although Mabel's not a fortune teller, she's just a counselor who wants to help people with their problems. It's something I really like about this show a lot, is that however small, I like how much life it gives to a lot of its side characters, and it really does make this community feel very alive with a lot of characters that I do genuinely like and care about. This is a really good episode, good focus on Mabel, not much more to say. Number 66, Unreality TV. It's a funny satirical look at people who get addicted to believing everything they see on TV. I don't have much more to say about that. I kinda wish there was more of a monster, but it has funny moments and good social commentary. Number 65, Labor Days sees everyone going to work in a factory. It all seems glorious because they get a lot of cool benefits and get a lot of cool new gizmos, but yeah, it's just a ploy for DD to build an Ice Dragon robot. Oh yeah, Ice Dragon. Well, we'll get to him soon enough. Really odd that DDD liked this monster so much, huh? Number 64, Kirby's Excellent Adventure. This is one that I watched a lot as a kid because I actually have the DVD with this one on it. And it's a solid introduction to Dynablade with an absolutely hilarious DDD moment partway through.
Dynablade and egg laid, E-I-E-I-O. What a handsome king and a plan he made, E-I-E-I-O.
I think it's just a very solid and entertaining episode. Wish there was a bit more of a fight here, but I can actually understand why there's not, as it's actually just a misunderstanding with Kirby and Dynablade, which I think makes the ending a lot more wholesome. Number 63, Kirby's Duel Role. King Dedede gets Meta Knight to duel with Kirby, which is really just an excuse to train Kirby with a sword. Dedede then orders a sword monster that gets defeated pretty easily. Much like the last one, I also have this one on DVD as well as the next episode I'm talking about, so I've seen these ones a lot in my life. Also, kind of weird to imagine Bugsy with a sword, but that's what we get. Number 62, A Blockbuster Battle. Same as previously, I had this one on DVD also, on the same disc in fact. And yeah, this is the second episode of the show where everyone tries to build Kirby a new home. Dedede, wanting to get rid of Kirby at all costs, orders the big heavyweight Blocky. Kirby makes good use of his weight, and inks this block to the bottom. There's some funny out-of-context moments throughout, though.
I know I heard the sound of sucking over here somewhere.
Number 61, Trick or Trek. This is an interesting episode where the gang all decide to go on a nature hike, and along the way, Dedede gets lost, accidentally sets Wispy Woods ablaze, and when all hope is lost, Kirby sucks up a nearby helicopter propeller, turning into Tornado Kirby, and yeah, that's pretty awesome. Number 60, DDD's Snow Job. In this episode, DDD orders a little tiny ice dragon, which soon covers all of Dreamland in a blanket of white. Along the way and along the fun times, Kirby meets a snowman named Chili. Chili tries several times to outright kill Kirby. Yes, I said that right. This little snowman straight up tries to murder Kirby, including one time with a very sharp icicle while Kirby sleeps. Never mind censoring American Yu-Gi-Oh! 4Kids just flat out left this one in. Gotta say, I'm honestly surprised they didn't censor this, but Kirby's cuteness makes this impossible to go through. Eventually, like Robot Dog, Chili comes to Kirby's aid during the fight with the monstrous ice dragon. I gotta say, I love this redesign. Great way to make the little chibi Dreamland 2 monster, well, more monstrous. With the help of Chili, Kirby defeats the ice dragon, Summer returns to the land, and at the cost of Chili's life, who we see slowly start to melt away before dissolving in the ocean. I like this episode quite a bit. I wouldn't call it overly sad, but honestly, the ending of this one with Chili hits me more than Robot Dog. I honestly like that Chili comes to Kirby's rescue at the end too, knowing that Kirby saved its life too, and yeah, it's an episode I honestly find more emotional than what most people would say is the most emotional one of this show. There is still at least a few more episodes I find more emotional than this though, and we'll get to those later. Number 59, A Half-Baked Battle. This is a pretty funny episode because it involves a lot of pie throwing, and who doesn't love pie throwing? When DDD gets embarrassed by one of these pranks, he decides to hold a giant pie-throwing contest, complete with a giant pie-throwing monster. Can I say pie-throwing anymore in this script? It has some very funny out-of-context lines throughout, like Meta Knight's
I feel dirty.
and ending with Bomb Kirby defeating the giant stomach monster from inside. It's a little weird, but I don't care, it's pretty great. Number 58, War of the Woods. In this episode, the gang decide to go camping out in Wispy Woods, and a fight between the Cappies and the animals ensues. It's got some nice cameos from the animal buddies, and it features a really cool moment with Cutter Kirby versus King Dedede partway through. The real episode involves everyone coming together to save an ancient tree from drifting apart in a storm, and it's alright. I can't complain too much when everything leading up to this was so great already. Number 57, The Flower Plot. In this episode, Wispy Woods falls in love with a flower. It's a pretty cute episode until DDD decides to kidnap Lovely, turning into a monster, and then this episode basically becomes Undertale. In fact, yeah, when this video was still up on YouTube and after Undertale made the rounds in 2015, that's pretty much all the comments turned into. Still though, Cutter Kirby will always be great, and I think Lovely was a really cool monster to demonstrate that. Number 56, The Fofa Factor. Hey look, all 3 Cutter episodes in a row, how about that? Honestly, not intentional, I just think this episode's neat. Pretty funny split with all the characters that leads to some funny gags. It's nice to see a backstory for Lolo and Lala, as well as the fact I had this one on DVD. It's always been a really iconic one for me, and again, I love Cutter Kirby as well. Number 55, DDD's Raw Deal. In this episode, DDD decides to set up a sushi belt running across Cappy Town, and in an elaborate ploy to get rid of Kirby, he gives him a potato that's set to give him never-ending hiccups, followed by a giant squid monster. Squishy. Boy, this one got a glow up from the games. Also, we get the first ever introduction of Spark Kirby in the anime, long after he ate Krako's lightning. I don't have much more to say about that. Spark Kirby's iconic. The rest of the episode is kind of just okay, though. Number 54, A Trashy Tale. This is a pretty neat episode. Well, maybe the opposite of neat, actually. After the whole town starts having some pack rat issues, DDD orders a literal trash can monster to cause even more trouble for people. This is a monster that's so gross even Kirby doesn't want anything to do with it. Thanks to cleaning Kirby though, everything becomes sparkling clean again. I like this one because they give some nice development, however small to more of the side characters. I'll mention that more throughout this list, but I just love when this show decides to do that and give the side characters more screen time. Number 53, The Meal Moocher. We have another cooking episode here, and this is one that I enjoy a lot more than the others. In this episode, DDD decides to host a cooking show for the others to cook for him. Realizing that everybody makes way better food than he's having, he humorously blows all his money away. Also, I really love this exchange with the sales guy here.
What's cooking, D?
Send me a crack.
Say what?
This line cracks me up every time I hear it. I don't know if it's Dan Green's reaction to it or what, but it's just hilarious. And for a rare change, DDD actually gets help from Kirby against this dangerous monster.
Have to cancel that Millions for a Meal show.
Done deal! Not get me down!
Yeah, I think this one's honestly more entertaining than the other cooking episodes so far. Number 52, The Kirby Quiz. It's another quiz show episode, and one that's way better than the last one. It's a literal quiz of past Kirby episodes, splattered with new quips and commentary from the cast. It's a fun watch. Number 51, Sheepwrecked. This is a very unique episode, and for one reason in particular, the monster in this one doesn't really have anything to do with enemy. A rogue sheep escapes an execution, runs off, and becomes a wolf. It's one part Boy Who Cried Wolf, another part... Wait, what did I just read there? Also, shout out to Ted Lewis in this episode, because not only does he take on the double duties of being DDD and Escargoon as usual, but also the evil sheep Ammon.
Now you will suffer what we have suffered, Star Warrior. Let's see how you like being skewered.
Okay, honestly, Ammon's not really evil. He's not a monster in the traditional sense. He's more of a creature seeking vengeance for being raised in an unfair society, and why am I bringing up so much gray area debate in this one? I wish we got more episodes like this, though, because it's one that definitely breaks the norm, and for a change, we have a villain who's not overly evil and not tied to the evildoers. There's one other episode that's like this, but we'll get to that one much later. Number 50, Hatch Me If You Can. In this episode, Kirby befriends a little baby Galbo, a fire-breathing baby dinosaur monster that causes trouble for everyone, but that's something that Kirby can't really comprehend. He doesn't want to be in the wrong, though it's a bit of a tricky situation. In the end, a big Galbo shows up and practically kills the little one when it sticks up for Kirby. This is honestly a really sad moment for Kirby that's turned into pure vengeance. Kirby gets pissed, understandably, and turns into Fire Kirby to beat this beast. Thankfully, Kirby makes short work of it, and the little Galbo survives, but it doesn't really ever show up again. Still, though, what a moment. What a cool moment, though, for sure. Number 49, Abusement Park. This episode's pretty funny. DDD converts his castle into a crazy, wacko amusement park, and in the end, they set up a fake karaoke contest to get Kirby with a microphone monster called Walkie. The plan actually succeeds, and Kirby gets transported to Nightmare Enterprises. When all hope seems lost, though, nobody could account for Mike Kirby being a horrendous singer. Even though Kirby did fall for the sales guy trap, they sent him back to Dreamland instead. And then Kirby demolishes the castle because of his bad singing. Talk about an ending, man. Number 48, DDD's Pet Threat. When DDD orders a new pet, turns out these little scarfy creatures could multiply, and that soon causes big trouble. This episode also introduces the hammer ability into the show, which is always a treat to see. Number 47, A Dark and Stormy Night. This is one of the earliest episodes of the show, and one that explains Meta Knight's backstory, and also brings in Kirby's most iconic Thundercloud monster. Also, one of the biggest ass pulls I've ever seen from this show.
He sent the lightning!
Sword, Kirby.
All right!
But overall, though, it's a really good episode still, especially for being so early on. Great to get this kind of backstory and lore kind of established early on, before the show gets a little sillier. Number 46, DDD's Monster Piece. This is one of those episodes that just kind of speaks for itself. DDD creates an art museum, which makes Tiff really happy because she was trying to get everyone in Cappy Town into art. And along the way, DDD orders the monster paint roller to try and vandalize all these paintings. This is just a bizarre episode that's not really like any other, and it's the only appearance of the paint ability in the show too. Paint Kirby definitely painted a lasting impression with this one. Number 45, Cappy Town Down. This is a really weird one to rank because this is one of the last episodes of the show, and in fact, in the English dub, there's an edit that combines the last 5 episodes into one feature-length movie. This episode is the smack middle one of that, and I think it's very good in that context, but by itself, this episode is just kind of there. One night, a big Destraya UFO comes and just destroys Cappy Town. Kirby manages to stop it, but the damage was already done. Cappy Town is all in flames. and the citizens of Cappy Town aren't sure if they can trust Kirby anymore, which leads to some pretty intense confrontations between Tiff, who's championed Kirby as being their helper for so long. Meanwhile, Meta Knight starts to unveil his master plan, because secretly, in all this time, he was building the battleship Halberd underneath DDD's castle, and their plan is to take it straight to enemy. Sergeant Cosmos also comes back and convinces all the Cappies to fight with all the Star Warriors, as they need all the help they can get. Like I said, I really like this episode, but it's difficult to rank by itself since it is one piece of a much greater puzzle. Number 44, Going Bonkers. This is a pretty cool episode, if only for the King Kong references alone. And it's also really nice to see another monster who's not overly evil, although he gets turned into a monster because of DDD and Enemy. I also really like the fourth wall breaking with Bonkers. It's pretty funny because it turns out he was a fan of the Kirby anime from his Circus Master. This one is weird, but I don't care because it's pretty awesome anyway. And it's the best Hammer Kirby episode of the show too. How about that? Number 43, Ninja Binge. Out of all the Kirby episodes, this is the one that gives me the most choice words. I do like it for how unique it is. A ninja tries stealing something from Cappy Town, which turns out to be his failing report card, and he fails miserably at everything. All the Cappies believe it's some ancient ninja artifact, including DDD, who wants to learn the ways of the ninjas, and things get much worse when DDD orders a monster called Yamikage from Nightmare Enterprises, a former Star Warrior who betrayed them to go to the dark side. Not gonna lie, that's points already for one of the coolest monsters in this entire show, and we get a really cool and unique Ninja Kirby fight as well. It's a great episode, but there is one thing that hurts this one a lot. The cliffhanger.
One day I will get my revenge.
Yamikage survives their fight against Kirby. He runs away and swears revenge. Even Meta Knight warns Kirby to never let his guard down, for the monster will strike again someday. 23 years later, I'm still waiting. Number 42, A Fish Called Kine. Okay, this one might be a bit silly to include so high up. I know there's probably people who'd rank this one much lower, but I find this one amusing in so many ways. Out of all the animal friends to make an appearance in this show, Kine is the only one to get a central role in an episode. And it happens to be an episode about him having a crush on Tiff. You know what? I don't hate this, though. It's very bizarre. A fish spending time with... Okay, Tiff's not exactly human, but you know what I mean. And, of course, Kine falls victim to so many hijinks on land, including almost getting eaten by Dynablade. Of course, Kine also falls victim to one of DDD's hijinks, too, and... You know what? I actually kinda dig DDD's plan in this one, because DDD wants to turn Kine's coral reef home into a new underwater castle. It's a unique premise that never really gets brought up again, and we get a kinda one-sided battle between Kirby and Kine versus DDD sub. It's especially one-sided once Kirby turns into Tornado Kirby from a propeller. I don't have much more to say. I think it's just a really solid and funny, if bizarre plot to this one that makes good use of the classic game character. I really wish Rick and Koo could have gotten an episode of them too, but oh well, Kine got one. I'm honestly surprised it took us this long to get here, but here we go. We have our first two-parter episode. Maybe it's unfair to some that I'm treating these with one entry, but they tell two parts of a much bigger story, and I think pretty much all the part ones would be so much lower than the part twos anyway, so yeah, I'm combining these for this list. Anyways, the first two-parter we're talking about is the Kirby Derby. DDD announces a race in Cappy Town, to which Tiff heavily objects Kirby enter, yet Meta Knight repairs Kirby's big starship and enters anyway. Part 2 is the actual race itself, and much as I love the wheel ability, I don't really have too much more to say about this one in particular. It's just a solid 2 episodes of fun, racing-fueled hijinks, complete with some of the wildest driving from Meta Knight you'll ever see, and oh yeah, like I said, Wheel Kirby is great as always. That being said, there's another episode I think that does this idea even better though, more on that one later. And I want to say from here on, I know these numbers may still seem pretty low, but we're at a point where I would honestly say every episode going forward, I would say is at least a 4 out of 5 stars for me, and many of these episodes, I think I could interchange going on here. Number 40, Right Hand Robot. This one is just an awesome episode. After ages of Escargoon getting tired and abused by Dedede, I can't really blame him for that, he builds a robot a la Frankenstein to do Dedede's work. Things backfire for him when Dedede breaks it on more than one occasion, and at one point Escargoon goes insane and tries to take out Kirby himself with a bazooka, to which Meta Knight hilariously intervenes.
I'll get you this time, Kirby!
No, you won't.
This scene gets me every time I see it. Of course, Escargoon asks help from Enemy, which turns out to be a big mistake. The robot has a button installed on it that turns it into a wild monster. I gotta say, I love the design of this one a lot. It tracks down Kirby, attempts to blow him up with missiles, and there's an epic Warp Star battle that occurs with Bomb Kirby and the robot. After it's blown up, Escargoon mourns his fallen robot before crashing due to exhaustion. All I can say, it's a great episode. I really like a lot of the episodes from the last third or so of the show, and it's a shame that a lot of the surviving episodes in the dub from this point have pretty poor bootleg quality, but it's better than nothing. That doesn't hinder my enjoyment though, I still really like it a lot. Number 39, Enemy Elementary. Dedede decides to open up a school in Cappy Town? What can possibly go wrong? How about a monster teacher hat that takes possession of everyone and makes them hyper-aggressive and violent? Even Tiff gets possessed at one point. Also, this episode sees one of the most bizarre logic cases I've ever seen, because at one point Tiff points out,
Hey, those weapons! If Kirby sucks up the monster's weapons, he can turn into Fighter Kirby and defeat him!
which means inhaling some chalk. I don't get it either, but Fighter Kirby is always super cool to see, and it makes absolute quick work of this giant hat. Also, pretty good that this is in the top 40, and it's the first of 6 fighter episodes we're going to talk about. Yeah. Number 38, One Crazy Night is a weird episode, but I don't care because it's pretty awesome too. A mysterious knight crashes into Cappy Town, and it turns out he lives this very strange fantasy life, being obsessed with comic books. And he also has a thing for Mabel again, because she bears a resemblance to a girl from one of his comics. Unfortunately, he also has an arch nemesis in the form of a giant windmill, and just so happens, of course, Dedede orders that exact windmill monster from Nightmare Enterprises to do battle. After an emotional defeat, Kirby turns into Mirror Kirby and does battle with it. Like I said, it's a little bizarre, but I really don't care because Mirror is such an awesome and iconic ability. Definitely the way better Mirror episode in this show. Kinda wish we got more than 2. Number 37. I'll always remember the preview for the episode A Sensational Surprise / A Sensational Puzzle. A hole in the sky, and no one's wearing sunscreen. It's an environmental message about those very dangers. Yeah, honestly, it's just a super entertaining episode where Kirby gets completely tanned and also features Jet Kirby, my all-time favorite copy ability. But Jet doesn't do too well against the monster, which leads to Bomb Kirby to take the showcase instead. It's a little bizarre that Kirby doesn't try the Jet Cracker move against this clear ozone layer Rayquaza looking thing, especially since Jet Cracker caused a massive explosion in its first appearance, but whatever. Putting my personal feelings aside for that, I think it's just a fun and entertaining episode. I like how Lady Like doesn't want her kids playing in the sun because of the harmful UV rays, but how Dedede's appliances secretly kill ozone instead. There's a lot of environmental message to this one, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. Number 36, Pink Collar Blues. This is an episode I could see people ranking much lower, because by itself, it's honestly nothing too special. I just have a lot of attachment to this one since I originally taped this one off TV back in the day, and it was one of those ones I used to watch quite often as a result of that. Basically, Dedede gets tired from all the Waddle Dees and decides to fire them for a robot that does his work instead. Boy, writing this makes me think more of the dangers of AI that we're slowly approaching to, huh? Anyways, the Waddle Dees don't trust the king and take a giant box of his loot from him, trying to protect it from the robot. Tiff, Tuff, and Kirby, and some of the adult Cappies try and investigate this one night, but let's just say Kirby isn't much of a photographer. At the same time, though, the scene is really cute. The very next day, turns out the robot wasn't to be trusted, as when Dedede and Escargoon find that their money is stolen, yeah, it turns out the robot was used to get payment to Enemy instead. The robot turns into a monster, and when the king's in trouble, the little Waddle Dees all return to help, which does very little once the robot transforms. Thankfully, Kirby shows up just in time, turns into Stone Kirby, and they all help to save the day. Like I said, I really like this episode a lot. It may be just another episode to some, but I have a bit of a soft spot for it, being one that I watched a lot as a kid. Number 35, Mummy's Madness. Given how often I reference this episode, you might be expected to see this one a lot higher, but here's the gist. Mr. Curio uncovers a relic one night that quickly turns hostile against everyone. It nearly even defeated Kirby one night. The kids try and figure out what Curio was up to again, and a misunderstanding happens when they stop Curio as he was secretly trying to seal the beast away again. I actually really like what Meta Knight says here, by the way.
Trying to stop Mumbies? Rats! And we stopped you.
Enough! Oh, Kirby needs help.
Also, I love this transformation moment too. Dedede thinks Kirby is done for good as he can't copy mummies. So what does he do? Wraps a bomb in bandages, tossing it thinking it will get rid of Kirby. Even Escargoon warns him this is a terrible idea, and everyone can see a mile away what's gonna happen. Sure enough, Kirby inhales it, turns into Bomb Kirby, and fends off the beast. All in all, I really like how potent Mummies is as a monster. Despite being small, they're vicious creatures that are pretty much only weak to sunlight. It's a great episode. Number 34, The School Scam. King Dedede wants to open another school, and this time, Enemy sends a few transfer students who do nothing but cause problems. I mean, these three are real assholes. Tiff is appointed as a new teacher, and they absolutely do not listen to her at all. Nobody, I mean nobody wants to go to school because of these bullies here. Tiff decides the only way she'll go back to school is to learn self-defense from Meta Knight. Interestingly, she points out that she would have trained with Knuckle Joe if he was in Dreamland at the time. Oh, yeah, Knuckle Joe, more on him in a bit. Anyways, using this new martial arts training, Tiff does battle with all three bullies one at a time, and she actually bests all of them. However, she gives an emotional speech after the fact, realizing that it was the wrong thing to do and that, as a teacher, learning should be fun and not violent. It's a pretty heartwarming episode, not gonna lie. But it turns out, of course, that the bullies were monsters instead. And in a repeat from the first school episode, Kirby turns into Fighter Kirby by inhaling the literal garbage that these monsters spit out. Okay, chalk weapons was one thing, but what the hell is this? Anyways, the fight is awesome. Fighter Kirby episodes have a lot of great fights, and this one's a lot better than that teacher creature fight because there's a lot more that happens. Dedede makes the outdoor gym electric, Kirby gets fried, but he still gets back up to finish off the bullies again. Number 33, Island of the Lost Warrior. When the gang gets swept to a deserted island by a giant tornado, they meet Sergeant Cosmos, believed to be the last Star Warrior alive from the Great War, besides Meta Knight and Kirby. Initially, Cosmos is extremely hard on the gang. He acts like an old drill sergeant, believing Kirby might be a traitor and not a real Star Warrior. That is, until Tough accidentally drops a knife belonging to Meta Knight, which leads Cosmos to believe that they're secretly telling the truth. Eventually, Dedede and the monster Tornadon return to the island, and Kirby fights the beast with his similar tornado powers, showing Cosmos he was a real warrior after all. As I mentioned in Cappy Town Down, Sergeant Cosmos returns for the endgame of the show, and I'm glad he got to come back. Number 32, Scare Tactics. We have another two-parter here, and we're in for a real haunting good time here. Okay, in all seriousness, it's this high up for part 2 alone. Not that part 1 is bad or anything, but it's really primarily just a setup episode, as the adult Cappies try to set up a spook out for the kids, and it ends when Tiff and Kirby get trapped in a giant spooky house. In part 2, we are treated to some of the wildest, weirdest animation in the entire show, and I mean just weird stuff. Weird haunted clocks, we have blood pouring down from statues, not censored in the 4Kids dub, by the way. You get a spoof of the psycho shower scene, found camcorder footage a la Blair Witch Project, Dedede pretends to be a chained up torture victim, complete with red paint. It is so weird, it absolutely has to make this high up spot for that alone. And it turns out the mansion was secretly a trap set up by Nightmare Enterprises to kidnap Kirby. And we get a monster, this bony guy named Gabon. It's another generic enemy from the games, and it's not a very threatening monster. Fire Kirby basically just scorches it in the entire mansion. But because of how weird and weird this episode is, it had to make this high up spot. Number 31, Flower Power. At the time I'm writing this, the other day I saw someone mention this was one of the worst episodes of the entire show, and I have to disagree. It begins with a famous meme. Kirby holds up a chocolate bar, and then falls asleep because Dee dares him to eat a naughty. They learn that the only way to wake Kirby up after this is an ancient flower called the Pookie Flower, and because Tuff was the one who got Kirby into this mess, he decides he should be the one to take Kirby there. Along the way, Tiff and Meta Knight follow him, and Tuff almost gets killed 4 times to various other threats. A giant spider, giant snake, drowning, bees. Look, if you don't love Tuff, I get how this episode isn't for you. He wishes to be hero, gets pissed at Meta Knight for doing all the work, and turns out the Pookie Flower was really a vicious monster that would have eaten him alive. And even Meta Knight struggles to fend off this beast. Don't know if he was actually fighting at his full strength here, but whatever. Tuff learns from his mistakes, though, and in the end, he really does try and help Kirby out, eventually grabbing one of the petals he needed to wake Kirby up. Kirby thankfully wakes up in time and turns into Needle Kirby to fend off the beasts, with Meta Knight torching the remaining bit of it. And Kirby finishes the episode off with the chocolate bar he bought at the beginning. Look, putting the chocolate bar memes aside, I actually really like this episode a lot. Tuff doesn't really get too many episodes to himself, and while he acts a little selfish, he realizes in the end that he was wanting to save Kirby, and ultimately, he does so in a pretty selfless way. Maybe I'm ranking this one a lot higher than most people would, but I don't care. I really like it. Number 30, Escargoon Rules. This is a really sweet and wholesome episode, and one that I'm probably ranking a lot higher than most other people. It begins with Escargoon getting a letter from his mother, and that she would be soon visiting Cappy Town. You see, Escargoon may be a little antagonistic, but there is one person he truly loves above anyone else, his mommy. Kirby greets her as she arrives in Cappy Town, and turns out she's a really sweet lady. Escargoon, not wanting to be seen as a failure, he ends up convincing Cappy Town that he's the real king for this. Only problem is, he needs to keep that a secret away from Dee. This goes over about as well as you'd expect. By the end of the episode, Dee tries to order a bunch of monster umbrellas, the drifter creatures from Dreamland 2 and 3. Not really the most threatening monster, but when Escargoon accidentally spills who the real king is, we get a really tender moment from his mother, and telling him that she'll always love him no matter what.
Oh, Escargoon! I don't care what you are! Huh? You're my little boy, and I'll always love you no matter what!
That's beautiful. I love you, Mommy!
Everything's alright now, Junior!
I really love how sweet and tender this line is, and it's immediately followed up with her dissing Dee. It's so great. Kirby thankfully intervenes in incoming drifter attack, and we get a battle of parasols. Yeah, Dee stood no chance here, but I'm glad we got an episode like this. It shows the softer side of an otherwise usually antagonistic sidekick, and definitely brings a lot more light to these lovable characters. Number 29, Curio's Curious Discovery. This is an episode I was surprised to see ranked so highly, because as a kid, I don't think I thought much of it, but as an adult, it has one simple meaning that I can really get behind. Like a few others, I had this one on DVD growing up, so I watched it a lot. And in this episode, Curio goes through hard times with his business and accepts a deal from Dee. However, it involves characters digging up old ancient artifacts, making it think that their old civilization wasn't actually from the Cappies, but from Dee's people. It's a little bit bizarre, but being an early on episode, Dee is very antagonistic here, borderline dictatorship. In fact, this episode sees him outright trying to kill Tiff later in the episode. Anyways, Tiff catches Curio in the act of burying fake artifacts and convinces him that he should just tell the truth and that that'd be the better thing to do. The next day, in front of a big speech, Curio does just that, much to the king's chagrin. Dee, not taking this so well, decides to turn a giant statue of him into, well, an even bigger statue of himself. After Meta Knight saves Tiff from turning into a literal pancake, we get Stone Kirby's transformation thanks to Curio and his smart thinking, and Kirby making quick work of this giant Dee statue. It's a basic life lesson in this one, but I think it's one that carries the episode a long way. When I started ranking this list, I was surprised to see myself placing it so high up, but I stand by it. I think this is just a great episode about, well, telling the truth. Number 28, tourist trap. This is similar to a lot of other recent entries on this list, and maybe another one I have so high up for nostalgia, but I don't really care either. This episode is awesome. DDD decides to turn Cappy Town into a literal tourist town, and a group of tourists come and really wreck up the place. Generally, I think it's a really fun episode, watching a tour bus go completely out of control, especially after they try viewing Dynablade up close. Yeah, like that's gonna end well. And also, ever since I was a kid, I've always quoted this one escargoon line for I don't know what reason.
I think I just bit through my tongue.
But what gives this episode the high up spot is the monster fight. DDD decides to take the tourist group to the Boomadooma volcano. Understandable, it's a volcano, they're kind of common tourist attractions. And he decides to set off a fireworks show to hide the true purpose. A giant fireball monster called Flame Feeder that exists solely that feeds on flames. In a hot, molten volcano, there is no better place where this monster would be any stronger. I'm just saying it right now, I love the atmosphere in this fight too. So much the way that the bright fires clash against this dark sky. It's just a pretty episode to look at. Even Fire Kirby struggles fighting the monster that, well, literally feeds on fire. And when Kirby's in a weakened state and can't do it, Tiff decides to get all the tourists to throw in their ice packs instead. I have no idea how these little ice cubes don't melt over this big volcano here, but as I've said so many times before, I don't care because it's so awesome. Ice Kirby destroys Flame Feeder, and DDD's tourist days are over. It's just an all-around great episode. I love the whole Flame Feeder and ice setup with this monster. My nostalgia's high for this one, and I think it holds up very, very well. Number 27, A Princess in Distress. A princess from another planet comes to visit Cappy Town. The gang decides to meet her and make acquaintances with her and their protector, Commander V. Or so they think, because in a spree of fun and games to be had, V is actually revealed to be the real Princess Rona because she wanted to have a day of fun and games before her royal duties made her ascend to the rank of queen. Meanwhile, the actual princess is back at the castle while DDD attempts to win her over. Look at this Waddle Dee. You can tell he is just so done with this. DDD's attempts at winning her over don't go as planned, so he tries holding a sword-fighting duel against the commander. DDD does not do well since, despite being a princess, Rona can actually wield a sword quite well. Meanwhile, DDD decides to sick a monster on her, which Kirby steps in to defend. I really like Kirby's independence here too, because usually in most episodes, Tiff's the one who tells Kirby to suck up something, and here Kirby just runs in to defend Rona. And he ends up inhaling DDD's sword here. I love this moment, by the way.
What's he trying to inhale?
Your sword there?
The two sword users team up, slice the tail off, in a really iconic team-up attack here. Yeah, I just really like this episode a lot. It has some really lighthearted fun and a really cool monster fight too. What more can I say? Number 26, Waste Management. Remember earlier in the video I said that an episode did Empty Nest Mess better? Well, I'm finally getting to talk about that one. I think this is the best Dynablade focused episode. In this episode, DDD decides to get rid of his trash problems, and he decides to give it to a bunch of crows. Why he doesn't get Cleaning Kirby to do this as he's done in a previous episode, I have no idea. Eventually, though, this backfires as the crow leader discovers his previous monster serum that he tried using on Dynachick, and then this episode turns into a literal spoof of Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. Something I should have mentioned earlier is that the Kirby anime has a lot of movie spoofs, and that's something we've seen a few times already. King Kong, Mothra, multiple horror movies such as Psycho and Blair Witch Project, and even a few more we have yet to talk about yet. So yeah, a flock of birds start terrorizing Cappy Town, led by a giant monster crow. To make matters worse, he kidnaps Dynachick and holds him for ransom, and then utterly blasts Dynablade with laser eyes. This looks like it hurt like hell too, because in past episodes, Dynablade was seen as having legendary powers and almost nothing fazed it. Here, she gets absolutely destroyed. Thankfully, Kirby steps in and inhales a crow feather, becoming Wing Kirby in the process, and then leveling the playing field big time. Wing is not normally one of my favorite abilities, but they make a strong case for it here in its only instance in the anime. And once rescuing Dynachick, we see Dynablade take action against Chromon once again. It's just a really epic confrontation, whatever way you slice it, and it's so great we finally get a great battle with this legendary bird after all. We're in the top quarter of this list, and trust me, it is very hard to rank these from here on out. Teacher's threat for the third time in this show, Dedede decides to open up a school, and for a change, he wants to go to school too. Turns out there's a new teacher in town named Mr. Chip. I really like this character a lot. He may be just about the most likable side character introduced in this entire show. He deeply cares for his students and he wants everyone to learn. But unfortunately, not all good things can last. As it turns out, Mr. Chip was actually hired than none other than Nightmare Enterprises itself. Tiff is really devastating hearing this, not wanting to believe it to be true, but Mr. Chip actually admits this, although he was only hired because it was a job. He also admitted that, as part of his contract, he was supposed to harm some of the students, and he actually stops himself from that side of the deal, admitting he couldn't admit to harming innocent children whom he actually cared about. Of course, this was cue for Dedede to bring in a teacher monster instead, which thankfully Sword Kirby battles atop a school rooftop against this lightsaber-wielding beast thing. It's a little bizarre, but I like this one a lot. Mr. Chip is just a really great side character, and I enjoy that all the school episodes just got better and better. Number 24, Snack Attack Part 1 and 2. It's another two-parter, and both are quite different and unique from each other. In this episode, Tuggle and Gengu, feeling very low sales from their respective stores, team up and start putting toys inside candies. I wonder how this episode fared in America, where Kinder Surprise toys were banned. Anyways, everyone in town, kids and parents alike, goes insane for these toys. And then we get one of the most self-aware, this show predicted situations I have ever seen. Meta Knight says this.
Me? A minifigure?
Yeah, but they're planning to increase sales by only sticking a few of your figures into snacks.
So they think my minifigure will be popular.
Huh?
I like that. Ah, yes.
This can't be a coincidence, because Masahiro Sakurai also worked on this show too, meaning he predicted the amiibo situation some 12 years earlier than when it actually happened. That is hilarious. Anyways, at night, a bunch of new snacks begin to fall from the sky, and these new figures end up in people's homes. They turn into mini monsters to give everyone trouble. This segues into part 2, where Dedede decides to host a martial arts tournament against his new elite martial arts line. In a huge coliseum, Kirby turns into Fighter Kirby to do battle with them all one at a time. Considering these monsters are all based on different martial artists such as karate, boxing, tai chi, kung fu, and sumo, the action never lets up for a second. It's really awesome. Fighter Kirby adapts in all these battles, and I'm not saying every Kirby episode needs to be action-packed, but it's great to see one like this. It's all killer, no filler. What more needs to be said? Number 23, Kirby Takes the Cake. This is another episode I'd probably rank a lot higher than most others, and in fact, this episode is roughly around the halfway point of the show, and in fact, the whole premise of this one is to celebrate Kirby's first anniversary in Dreamland. To do so, everyone's planning a big surprise party for everyone's favorite pink puffball, but they kinda keep a little too close-lipped about it. I know some people who think it's a little mean-spirited, and Takori especially, being a little green bastard he is, tells Kirby that no one likes him anymore. We then get a very heart-wrenching scene of Kirby bawling his eyes out at Kaboo Valley before Meta Knight finds our little hero and encourages him that people still care about him. When Kirby returns home, he's greeted by everyone throwing him a giant surprise party, followed by an even bigger surprise gathering outside. I forgot to mention earlier, Dedede attacked Tiff and the rest of the Cappies as, for some reason, he thought they were planning a revolution against him. I'm not sure how they managed to salvage enough goods out of this to make a big outdoor party like this, but oh well. Speaking of which, Dedede then shows up with a present of his own for Kirby, which is a giant cake from NME. Well, it seems well at first. Kirby loves the cake, but good things can't come to last, and a bomb monster was inside and begins to attack Kirby, followed by one of my favorite Dedede lines in this entire show.
They outdone their sale. I heard of pretty girls popping out of cakes, but this is better.
Kirby then turns into Bomb Kirby for the first time, reflects a giant bomb back at this monster, ends up defeating him in the process. I love this moment, by the way. Reflecting on Kirby's anniversary with an all-new power-up, Meta Knight just looks up at Kirby while reflecting just how much stronger he got in a year, and awaits to see how much stronger he'd become going forward. It's such a cool moment. Tiff then apologizes to Kirby, gives him a hug, and even a little kiss in the process. It's a very sweet moment, and I can forgive everything leading up to it because it's so great. Number 22, Here Comes the Sun. Putting aside the Beatles reference in the title aside, this is a great episode. A young fighter named Knuckle Joe comes to Dreamland, seeking vengeance against the one who killed his father. Already off to a great start, DDD tricks the young fighter into thinking Kirby was the enemy after all. As a big fight breaks out at the castle, Tiff orders the Warp Star to pick up Kirby and take him to a nearby cave. Later in the episode, Tiff, Tuff, Kirby, and Kawasaki strangely hide out in a nearby cave. But unfortunately, Knuckle Joe found them. He's taken aback a little bit that the little pink puff was the Star Warrior after all. Confused yet angered, he tries picking a fight with Kirby, which Kirby doesn't fight back at all. And DDD tries up the others for all of a few moments, because when all seems lost, Meta Knight steps in and frees the kids and the chef, and then explains to Knuckle Joe what's really going on. You see, Knuckle Joe's dad was once one of Meta Knight's closest allies, and a very good friend of him, but unfortunately, enemy captured Knuckle Joe's father one night and converted him to the dark side. With no other choice, Meta Knight had to make a brutal sacrifice, finishing off his one-time ally-turned-enemy. In his last words, though, Knuckle Joe gave Meta Knight a pendant of his baby son, revealing that he never fully committed to the dark side out of a love for Joe. Joe, meanwhile, isn't sure what to think about this. He's still blinded by rage that Meta Knight defeated his father, and Tiff tries to explain to him that everyone has capabilities of being good or bad, and that he should pick the path of the good side. Also, Kirby looks pretty good for being really beat up here, I gotta say. Anyways, after a commercial break, they begin their fight, and after just a few attacks, we get the introduction of Fighter Kirby in the show. They trade a few more blows, and then Knuckle Joe turns into a needle monster. I don't really get this. Anyways, Kirby turns into Needle Kirby to fend off this form of Joe, but after realizing he can't win, Joe admits he doesn't want to be a monster and accepts defeat. All in all, the Knuckle Joe episodes are a really, really great time, and considering we're almost in the top 20 and this is just the first one of these, yeah, we'll be seeing some more Joe going forward. This one is just great though. Number 21, Sweet and Sourpuss. This episode makes this high-up placement solely because it's absolutely hilarious. DDD orders a monster that attacks him before the opening begins, and for the rest of the episode, he is as mellow and nonchalant as it gets. He acts carefree about everything. People beat the heck out of him, wreck his car, every despicable thing imaginable. And all he says,
That's fine, let him play. Don't lose your temper, Escargoon. I don't mind. I got love inside me. Ah! That's okay, that's okay, that's okay.
It's just really, really funny, but as it turns out, yeah, there's a monster inside him that's gathering all that negative energy. Meta Knight suspects something is up before alerting Tiff about what's really going on. Eventually, they hold a celebration of DDD's new leaf, and after a few too many hits with a hammer pushes DDD over the edge, the monster escapes and it's this giant spike thing. For years I always thought this was a Gordo, but it's not, and it's also not Captain Stitch from Dreamland 2 either, despite some of the similarities. Anyway, Kirby turns into Needle Kirby, and it's a pretty standard battle here. Kirby just outsmarts him, makes it hit itself with its own needles, and then it explodes in a spectacular fireworks display. It's awesome. It's a really, really funny and hilarious and just great episode. Number 20, Hour of the Wolfwrath. We're starting the top 20 now, beginning with an absolute scorcher of an episode. This is another fan favorite one, and I can see why, for good reasons. DDD orders a monster, and unlike most other ones, this one has specific ties to Meta Knight, as this was a beast he fought before. Wolfwrath is usually seen among the most fiercest monsters in the entire show. This one, he's absolutely vicious, capable of breathing fire, he's very fast and powerful, and he actually bests Meta Knight by sticking a fang in his helmet. Damn! In this episode, we also get some more backstory, as Sword Knight and Blade Knight recount why they were so loyal to Meta Knight in the first place, and that, in the past, Meta Knight saved them from this beast. They drive Wolfrath away from the castle, and Kirby, taking the Galaxia Sword with him, flies and confronts this beast, but he's still in no shape to stand a chance. That is until Kirby ends up inhaling the Galaxia Sword, turning him into a souped-up Galaxia Sword Kirby. With the help of these knights tossing old Wolfie into the water, Kirby unleashes a powered-up sword beam, finishing off this wrath for good. It's not hard to see why this one's a fan favorite. Being a more story-driven episode and focusing more on Meta Knight, it really makes this one a lot more special to so many people. And I'm gonna be honest, well, growing up, I kind of found Meta Knight a little bit on the overrated side as a kid. I grew a large appreciation for what this episode was, though, and how different and more intense it was than when I was growing up. Number 19, Kirby comes to Cappy Town. It took us this long, but we're finally talking about the very first episode of the show, and pretty good placement to make it in the top 20. There's a lot that happens here, so I'll try and cut it short here. Begins with a giant octopus-eating sheep. Yeah, this entire show begins with a literal sheep genocide. Everyone is convinced Dedede is up to something, and when seeking help from the almighty Kaboo to help against this giant monster, he foresees a star warrior named Kirby coming to help them. Moments later, a giant starship arrives, and inside they find everyone's favorite little pink blob. This is Kirby. And I'm sure you know who he is if you got this far in the video. Dedede doesn't like Kirby very much and smacks him away. Kirby eventually saves Tiff from a Mortal Kombat fatality, and afterwards Tiff, Tuff, and Kirby all become friends. At a dinner later that night, they discover Kirby has an immense appetite, and they're worried that Kirby was a real threat after all. Meta Knight soon introduces himself. Back at the castle, the octopus makes itself properly known. A fight breaks out, Kirby sucks up the fiery squids, transforming into the ever-iconic Fire Kirby for the very first time, besting this flaming beast once and for all. Kirby tries to leave, but his starship is destroyed, and this is his new home in Dreamland. It's a very involved first episode to say the least, but you know what? I think it really works well. It establishes almost all the tropes this show has in only about 22 minutes, and I think it's a really great beginner episode of this show. It starts strong right out of the gate, and for that, I think in the top 20, it's a very good spot for it. Number 18, Cowardly Creature. I'm going from a very early episode to one of the last episodes of the show. In fact, the next few entries of this will actually be very late entries. In this episode, a very frightened monster escapes from enemy, and it turns out it's a giant scared elephant that starts running through Cappy Town. Everyone eventually hears that a monster is loose, but they soon realize it's not actually defending itself from Dedede's abuse, and that's when Kirby decides to step in. As a side note, as a kid, I was actually kind of pissed we didn't see a Hammer Kirby transformation here, but oh well. Kirby befriends Fan, leading to some squirrely memes, and eventually Dedede orders a monster tamer to show up and take back Fan, turning it into a monster. Who could have seen that one coming? We get a very unique battle now. Kirby sucks up a spike ball thrown by Fan, uniquely turning him into the throw ability. Even Meta Knight never saw this one before. Kirby grabs Whippy, tossing him around everywhere, and eventually into orbit, saving Fan in the process. They invite Fan to stay in Dreamland afterwards, and this never made too much sense to me because, with the exception of one small cameo in a later episode, this is so late in the show and they never capitalize on everyone's favorite new elephant being a permanent resident. But that doesn't hurt this episode in any way otherwise. It's a small nitpick to an otherwise really great episode. I've alluded to this before, but I don't actually find the Robot Dog episode that sad. I know, call me cold-hearted all you want. And speaking of cold, we also had Chili's death in an earlier episode as well. But there's actually one more episode I find to be a legit tearjerker, and we're going to talk about it now. Because at number 17, we have the episode Depreciation Day. Feeling annoyed that he isn't getting any respect from anyone, Dedede decides to hatch a series of schemes, and he takes things really personal here. He decides to lace a bunch of watermelons with explosives to get back at Kirby, and as a side note though, I don't get why he doesn't just turn into Bomb Kirby from this. He's eaten tons of explosives up to this point in the show, usually giving Bomb, or in one case the Crash ability, so I don't really get this, but anyways, Tiff and Tuff decide enough's enough, and they plan a scheme. A mock funeral for Kirby to show Dedede that he went too far this time. actually killing Kirby. Yes, they pretend to kill off everyone's favorite lovable pink puff Kirby. And this scene is just heart-wrenching. Even though as an audience we know it's just a scheme, they play this one as straight as possible, and I really feel for Dedede here. He is legit guilt-driven for being responsible for this, eventually even bringing a real watermelon to Kirby's grave that, while Tiff explains Kirby would have loved it, that it was too late. I honestly think this is the saddest scene in the entire show, maybe rivaled by one more we still have yet to talk about, but yeah. Now, I don't do well with funerals personally, and I'm sure most people don't, but this moment especially it's a tough one to watch. However, Kirby can't resist a good watermelon, and he bursts out from the grave anyway, which shocks King Dedede and Escargoon, thinking that they're seeing a ghost, but it works, and from here on, Dedede, he genuinely seems to be less and less antagonistic. I legit love this development of the king. It's a bit late in the show, but for one of the first times, it seems he shows genuine love and affection for our pink hero. Of course, from here on, the tone shifts a little bit, and a present arrives from Enemy, which, yeah, it's actually a monster. It's a monster called Chucky, who actually is a monster from Dreamland 1 of all the games. Odd time to reference this one, but sure. Kirby inhales a nearby umbrella and bests the monster with a parasol ability. It's not a sophisticated fight by any means, but the tone of this episode is otherwise really special. Hug your loved ones close tonight, especially when watching this one. Number 16, Frog Wild. Not counting the 5-part finale Fright to the Finish, this could be considered the penultimate episode of the show, or at least what I would call the last non-finale episode. And as a result, well, everything about this one is just awesome. It begins with Kirby finding this frog monster that Dedede ordered some time ago. This would actually make sense by this time, as by now Dedede has grown so wary of Enemy and that he has a new respect for Kirby. He doesn't want to order any more monsters by this point. However, this frog soon possesses Kirby and turns him into a straight-up monster. He's a real little devil too. He wrecks all of Cappy Town. He torches Kawasaki's restaurant, and even Dedede is taken aback by this. Turns out, he needs another monster to defeat this demon frog, a giant snake called Heavy Anaconda. There's some shenanigans, and Dedede ends up getting possessed by the demon frog instead, and we get something that I can only imagine Star Allies referenced for its Dedede battle here. I've said this so many times about the nighttime episodes too, but I really love the animation quality here too. When we see Heavy Anaconda, it swallows Dedede instantly because he had that demon frog inside him. Of course, we get another really cool Fire Kirby battle, and interestingly enough, we see him use the Fireball Dash ability instead, besting this cold-blooded snake for good. Meta Knight leaves off that there will then soon be way bigger fish to fry, alluding that future episodes will be part of the finale. Really, I love this episode, and what more do I need to say that hasn't been said already? The last few Kirby episodes are all peak, and even Cappy Town Down, which showed up earlier in this list. Keep in mind, we still have several more late period episodes as we enter the top 15. Number 15, Fossil Fools, Part 1 and Part 2. You knew this one would be coming up eventually. When folks discover an ancient T-Rex fossil, Dedede starts to learn about the dinosaurs, and he becomes really fascinated by them. Unfortunately, he's upset that they all went extinct. Wanting a dinosaur monster, he instead gets a crazy mad scientist named Dr. Moreau. Oh, the old movie references don't stop there. Moreau uses a genetic science experiment to make dinosaur monsters, which leads Dedede to open up an amusement park about dinosaurs. So yeah, this two-parter is a massive reference to Jurassic Park, which, to be fair, I've only seen a handful of times in my life, but it's still a really great nod regardless. During a boat ride, a bunch of small insects attack many of the characters, which are actually ordered by Dr. Moreau to steal DNA from everyone, and actually allow full-on cloning of DNA and making more and more dinosaurs. It's a little bit odd, but it's a really cool idea, so I don't really care. Eventually, Kirby gets separated by the gang, and the others try to go look for him. Turns out Dr. Moreau kidnapped Kirby and was able to get just enough DNA from him to go through with his master plan. We get an homage to the Jurassic Park kitchen scene while we're at it, and eventually the gang find Kirby, mostly unharmed, and I really like what Tiff does here too. As Kirby runs happily to his friends, Tiff immediately shields him from Dr. Moreau and tells him that they won't hurt Kirby anymore. It's little details I really like about this show, but unfortunately it's too late as Moreau unveils his greatest invention, Kirbysaurus. Everyone escapes outside but is surrounded by literally every dinosaur around. Kirbysaurus is among the strongest foes he fought yet, having the same strong and hail abilities. He's a lot bigger, and things get even dicier when he transforms into Fire Kirbysaurus. It looks like all hope is lost until DDD gets the brilliantly stupid idea to take out a really big bomb. Thankfully, Kirby on the Warp Star intercepts this, and for the very first time turns into Crash Kirby. I love this hat design, by the way. It's a little random, sure, and maybe the modern version of this makes a bit more sense, but I love this look a lot. Anyway, we all know what Crash does best. And sorry, Arnie, the Ice Age didn't kill the dinosaurs. A giant explosion did. I also find it really interesting to see how Kirby can basically choose who he damages with this ability, and that even more so, DDD and Escargoon are spared by this blast, yet Dr. Moreau and all the other dinos are sent straight to the Stone Ages. What can I say? Referencing a great movie is one thing, but doing it this well, it's a really awesome two-parter and has a great explosion. It's just peak all the way. Number 14, Combat Kirby. This is the penultimate episode of the entire show, and what an awesome one this one is. Aboard Battleship Halberd, everyone prepares for their giant battle as they head towards enemy's fortress. Eventually, DDD, who snuck aboard in a previous episode, gets hungry and gets busted. Thrown in jail because of this, he tries to order a monster to set him free, to which NME sends to the exact location. He sends none other than Heavy Lobster. This is a great homage to Kirby Superstar, and actually how this beast was fought aboard Halberd in Revenge of Meta Knight mode too. Anyways, this monster is quite powerful, seemingly indestructible for most normal attacks, and capable of melting very strong steel walls. Kawasaki actually gives Kirby a pan to try fighting it with Cook Kirby. Funny scene, but it goes nowhere fast. As the gang retreat to the engine room to try and stop it, Gus warns that if the lobster reaches there, the engine will blow, and that game will be over. Another subtle reference to Kirby Superstar with the reactor boss, now that I think about it. When all hope seems lost, Kawasaki shows up again with another plan. He tosses Kirby an ice cube tray, which turns him into the ice ability. This works great in freezing Heavy Lobster, allowing one final finisher from the Knight's Bazooka. This episode ends with the gang arriving at enemy's fortress, to which DDD hilariously and stupidly calls the sales guy to complain about how close they are. What a moron! What a moron! Meta Knight launches the all-out attack, which doesn't really go very far against hundreds of Destrias. However, when all hope seems lost, Meta Knight reveals they aren't fighting this alone, and that Knuckle Joe, Satirical, and the other Star Warriors join the battle for this finale. I love this, bringing back a ton of mostly one-off characters for this finale. Everything just feels so right about this, and it makes for one epic as hell setup to the finale episode, which, if you noticed, we still have yet to talk about. Number 13, Cappy New Year. Here's a holiday special that I absolutely love, and I usually make it an effort to watch this one every year on New Year's. It starts off with everyone in Cappy Town deciding, well, to do something for New Year's Eve. Only for DDD to announce he wants to do a fireworks show and will regulate everything that the Cappies decide to do. Of course, everyone else wants to get involved in this idea. Side note, I like how you can see Curio smoking here even in the 4Kids dub. Good job there, guys. Meanwhile, at the castle, DDD has ordered a small fireworks expert called Sasuke. Mispronunciation aside, I know it's supposed to be called Sasuke. This little enemy is actually from the games, Dreamland 2 and 3 in particular. Tuff and Kirby decide to do some sneaking around and accidentally get caught by DDD, who's planning a giant rocket to get rid of Kirby. The king then proceeds to give Kirby a major beatdown, and the heroes kind of just barely manage to escape. They warned Tiff all along that this is one big trap meant to get Kirby, but it's too late for everyone else to stop as all the Cappies, well, they're busy with their big fireworks display. And then we get an insanely CGI-heavy parade that honestly looks really pretty. Though, I actually have a bit of a theory with this episode. I always thought that the CGI budget looked so intense for this one that it actually might have caused future episodes to look much worse than this. Now, I have no way of proving this is just a tinfoil hat theory. I always just thought the animation quality, especially on Kirby in particular, looked way worse in later episodes. Anyways, back to the episode at hand, Dedede emerges in a giant float of himself, and of course, it's a trap piloted by the monster. He decides to unload everything, and I mean everything, against the town residents, and then targets Kirby. Kirby tries to inhale the giant float, but when all seems lost, Dedede decides to unload everything against our pink hero. But fortunately, he actually manages to suck up much of the fireworks instead and is able to transform into Fire Kirby. I love this, by the way. Maybe it's a subtle nod to Kirby 64 and its fireworks ability, but I really like the ability of turning into and manipulating fire in a much different way than usual methods. And we also get a very eerily iconic Meta Knight moment here, one of my favorites in the entire show.
I wanted to wish Kirby a Happy New Year. If he makes it to the New Year.
Kirby then battles the fireworks monster, almost ends up defeated until the Warp Star saves him. Then Kirby, using all his power, unloads every firework he has and just destroys the float. Sasuke isn't done yet though, as he launches a giant rocket at Kirby, sending him into orbit, and I love this sight, by the way. Dedede launches dozens and dozens and dozens of fireworks in the sky. Kirby regains his consciousness and inhales Sasuke just in time. We see a blinding light shine in the sky, and then a giant explosion lights up. All hope seems lost until Meta Knight points out he sees Kirby, now transformed into the Parasol ability for the very first time. In true New Year's special style, it ends with a celebratory Happy New Year message. Really, I love this episode a lot. It's really well paced and it looks damn beautiful, and it's actually the first episode in the show chronologically to contain 2 transformations. Like I said, I make it an effort to watch this one every New Year's, and I think it really sets the mood perfectly and gives a really celebratory feel to ringing in the new year. I don't have to say much more beyond that. Number 12, Cooking Up Trouble. What's this? A cooking-themed episode ranked this high and so much higher than a lot of the others? Well, yes, but hold on first. This episode actually begins rather simply. Cerebrum gets a phone call from his wife, who won't be home for dinner. After Tough makes a really stupid and sexist comment about how women should be the only ones cooking, Cerebrum actually steps up to the plate and decides to cook dinner for his kids, and Kirby as well, instead. I really like this scene a lot. Cerebrum may be a bit aloof, but he ultimately means well and he cares for his kids dearly, and I think that's something that's on full display here. He's honestly one of my favorite father figures in any cartoon I've ever seen. It's also here that we learn Meta Knight isn't a very good chef.
Of course, anything'd smell good compared to Meta Knight's cooking. You can say that again. Say what again?
I love this throwaway line. It's little out of context bits like this that I think really help make this show as great as it is. Anyways, word spreads around through town about what Cerebrum did, and everyone's shocked. They assume he's a master chef. Meanwhile, Dedede, also realizing he has very little money and can't order any big monsters, he decides to host another cooking show. And of course, hearing the news about this, all the Cappies decide that they want to order new cooking appliances to enter this competition, including Kirby and Takori for some reason. But theirs takes forever to arrive. I gotta love those shipping speeds there. As for the actual cooking competition, there's not really much to say about it. Dedede starts to grow annoyed at this because he wants to use it to assemble his big robot, but he can't because not every part is available there. I should also mention Cerebrum was one of the hosts of this cooking competition as well, which doesn't really sit too well with Tiff. Tiff gets rather fed up by this cooking competition though, and actually decides to stand up to the mic and say that she's disappointed in everyone for entering the competition, and that her dad is really no chef at all, let alone capable of hosting such a competition of sorts.
You think my father's a great gourmet, but he's not.
Cerebrum agrees to this, and he agrees to exit the competition.
My daughter is right. I am not a gourmet chef, and to be perfectly honest, I know next to nothing about cooking. I have absolutely no business judging this competition.
But before he can go too far, Tiff gets back on the mic again and explains that while he's not a good chef, he's a great father. He made dinner for his family so that Lady Light could have one night away, and
He's not a great chef, but he's a great dad. That's right. He cooked for us because he's our father, just so our mom could have one night with her friends. He cooked for us because he cared.
Tiff.
This is a really heartwarming moment. The cheers from everyone in the crowd just hit that feel-good spot right there. Of course, though, this is Kirby, and speaking of which, he decides to show up after this with the last piece of Dedede's new robot. A monster that can make food in a jiffy, and distracts Kirby long enough that he's unsure how to defeat it. In fact, nobody's really sure how to defeat this robotic beast. While being chased, some of the Cappies read the instruction manuals to see what they can do about it. Hearing these words, Meta Knight takes action, slashes the robot, and causes sparks to fly. Kirby uses that to turn into Spark Kirby and just incinerates this beast inside, making a good old roast Dedede and escargoon plate in the process. This episode is very similar to some early episodes, namely A Recipe for Disaster, but I'd rank this so much higher. Like I said, I really love this episode just for the Cerebrum moments alone, and while I have nothing against the cook ability, I think this one stands out much more for using a different ability too. And it has a cool robot monster. I just think it's a really, really great balance of wholesome fun, a good message, and a solid battle too. It's a really, really, really great episode. Number 11, Fitness Fiend. This episode makes it so high on the list for one reason and one reason only. Max Flexor, or Macho-san as he's called in Japan. For most of this episode, Dedede becomes addicted to junk food potato chips, which is actually a trap he ordered from Nightmare Enterprises meant to get at Kirby. See, they're really laced with chemicals that are just so addictive the user would want to keep eating them no matter what, gaining so much weight in the process. But this backfired when Dedede got a hold of them, only for Kirby to accidentally get a hold of them later. The moral of this one is definitely pretty obvious. It's a healthy eating PSA, but things go extreme very fast. Dedede orders the monster Max Flexor, whom, fun fact, is one of the few monsters in this show to actually appear in a later game, Kirby Mass Attack in particular, in the subgame Kirby Quest. Even the devs of that game knew what was up with this episode. Max Flexor, he's an over-the-top, flamboyant, Macho Man Randy Savage spoof, while his English voice is also a spoof on Richard Simmons. He tries everything to get back at Kirby and Dedede. He turns the castle layer into a wild fitness disco complete with crazy workout routines that soon turn deadly. He shocks them, he stretches them in weird ways, treadmills with spikes waiting at them, a steamroller driven by Waddle Doo. Max Flexor's voice and mannerisms carry this to absurdity, and it is hilarious all the way through.
Kirby's waist still isn't small, Dedede looks like a ball, exercise and cuts the flab, pretty soon you'll both look fab. 1, 2, 1, 2, go, 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 yeah, 1, 2, 1, 2, go, 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 come on, let's go, you're not gonna get a break, there's far too much at stake, now is not the time to quit, I have got to make you fit.
Lastly, he tries a giant heavy ball that's meant to crush Kirby and defeat him for good, but this backfires and instead causes Kirby to spit up all the chips he inhaled instead, and as a result, return him back to his original shape.
Kirby, suck up that headset!
When I first saw this episode as a kid and I heard Tiff say, "suck up the headset," I immediately knew this would only end one way, and it's hilarious. Mike Kirby is his most destructive ability, because at least unlike Crash, Mike has zero control over what he destroys. And in this case, not only does he use it to defeat Macho Max Flexor-san, he destroys the entire castle in the process. It's such a perfect way to end this wild episode, but not before Mike Kirby emerges from the rubble and begins to play an encore as well, much to Dedede's annoyance. Really, what more can you say about this one? Well, everyone, we finally made it to the top 10 of this list. Some people may be able to figure out what's up here, but what I've selected for this top 10 is definitely my favorites of the entire show. Starting at number 10, we have Cartoon Buffoon. Yeah, you all knew this one was going to be up here. Cartoon Buffoon might be the most famous episode of this show, and wouldn't you know it, it's actually sort of a filler episode too. There's no fight here and no transformation in the traditional sense. Normally, I'm not big on these kind of episodes, but one step at a time here, I suppose. This episode begins with Tiff showing a kid's flipbook animation, and Dedede becomes interested and wants to make a cartoon, with absolutely zero idea how to. With some help from enemies funding and hiring of the Cappies, he begins his own animation studio, and the rest of this episode is just one hilarious parody of the animation industry as a whole. The Cappies can't draw, they run out of paint colors, so they use ketchup and mustard. Everyone gets overworked and insanely crunched behind to meet an arbitrary deadline, so much so that they have to do the entire episode narration reading it in real time. And I bet to some people who work in this industry, this might hit a little too close to home and be too on the nose, but thankfully I don't, and I think it's a hilarious spoof that's every bit as just an enjoyable episode in its own way. Dedede, of course, wants the show to be about himself, and meanwhile everyone else thinks that Kirby should be the star. This leads to the king switching scripts and animation reels partway through while everyone else is too tired to notice. And when it comes to record everything in real time, we get treated to maybe the funniest moment in this entire show. We get intentionally terrible animation, some of which isn't even colored in. There's hilariously off-key scripts, there's social commentary about the state of animation and lip-syncing, there's one scene that just gets inexplicably JoJo-esque, and there's so many one-liners from Dedede. I actually bought this shirt from the Yeti a while back. I just had to get this one. Everyone knows the quotes.
I am a superstar warrior! Oh, come now, little old me a hero, surely you jesting!
These lines are great, and we also get spoofs of the opening and inverse of the first episode where Fire Dedede has to save the day from a Kirby. Even Meta Knight is like,
Look, it is Fire Dedede, our hero. I would never say that.
The episode ends, of course, with Kirby's drawings being the last one shown, to which ends Dedede's idea and dreams of ever running animation, until he decides to bring Diswalny out and Tuned Out. Look, I know that episode is much lower, and truth is, as a kid and for a long time, I actually liked Tuned Out more in many ways, because it has a really cool battle, and Diswalny, I think that part is still really good, but that episode also has the perverted animators that hold it back a lot. Cartoon Buffoon was actually one of those episodes I had taped off TV back in the day, and thus, I actually watched this one a lot more than most people probably would have. So, for years, I kind of just viewed it as entertaining, but kind of just okay. Nowadays, though, I love this episode a lot. It's so bizarre and different, and it's really downright hilarious, too. It has so many hilarious quotes from Dedede, and it even got a fan-made redrawing back in 2018, which is actually what led me and some of my friends to get back into this show, and we watched the entire thing over the course of about 6 months from late 2018 to early 2019. That's how great this episode is, and yeah, the redrawing of it, I think, is definitely worth a watch too. Number 9. Born to be Mild, Part 1 and Part 2. We have another two-parter here, and this one might seem kinda high to some, but I really enjoy this duology a lot. One night, a group of bikers suddenly ravages Cappy Town and try to stir up a lot of trouble. These bikers, led by the rough and tough Fang, are on the hunt for a legendary biker named Steppenwolf. Yeah, they aren't too subtle with this reference. Gus, meanwhile, recognizes the bikers and admitted he used to belong to their gang, but he unfortunately doesn't have the capability to help out in this situation, although by the next day, he's starting to dust off his old bike. Suddenly, Melman, of all characters, shows up and asks if he's going after Fang. And suddenly, Fang shows up looking for Steppenwolf again, and it ends with poor Melman getting attacked in the process. Not wanting to stand by for an old man being attacked like this, Gus gets into action on his bike, and with the help of Kirby on the Warp Star for support, it's actually a pretty cool action set piece, even though there's no transformation in it. It's a cool moment for Part 1. Dedede, of course, he gets annoyed back at the castle, and the sales guy, he recommends he sets up a formal race for this. As Kirby dispatches the smaller lackeys and everyone corners Fang, Dedede shows up and tells them of a new race happening at the rebuilt Coliseum. Yep, we're doing the Kirby Derby all over again, only this time we're also taking a page out of Snack Attack 2, building a giant Coliseum to race in. And to make matters worse, Dedede kidnaps Gus, preventing him from entering the Derby, as he would be the only one skilled enough to stand up to Fang. I actually wonder if this whole Coliseum thing is supposed to be a reference to Ben-Hur. It could just be superstitial, but it's kind of what I think of when I think of the giant Coliseum race here. Anyways, part 2 begins with the race, which goes over about as well as you think. Everyone else in the race is about as disposable as it gets besides Kirby, who's riding a wheelie scooter too. I see the little air ride references here and there, though this vehicle's pretty dang slow in terms of top speed, but anyways, Tiff, Tuff, and Meta Knight break into the castle and find Gus's jail cell, where we get a little more backstory here. They used to be in a biker gang together until one day they challenged the legendary Steppenwolf to a race, who absolutely bested them even when Fang started to play a little cheap and dirty. Steppenwolf then delivers possibly the best, most over-the-top speech in this entire show.
You think being a biker means being nasty and hurting innocent folks? It's not. It's about something else.
Yeah, what?
Freedom.
I can't tell if this is supposed to be cheesy or just downright great. Because of this, Gus quit the biker gang right then and there, swearing to never ride again. Only for, they need him right now as the race, well, it's not going well. Speaking of, back at the race, we see just Gangu and Kirby are left remaining here. Meta Knight and the Knights do some snooping and inform Tiff that the Gas and Fang's vehicle may not be from around Popstar and that he suspects a monster's around. Seeing Gangu get injured gives Gus the motivation to get back in the race, and when Fang starts playing dirty, the legendary Steppenwolf suddenly shows up, saves Gus, rips a chain from Fang, and then ramps over the entire arena in an exit. God damn, what an entrance! When can I play as this character in Mario Kart Wii? Of course, Fang doesn't take too lightly into this and turns into a monster wheelie. I don't know how long Fang really was this wheelie, but, okay then. Kirby then turns into Wheel Kirby, and the rest of this race is laughable, because Wheelie stands no chance against Kirby's more expert driving skills. We get another collapse of the Coliseum, and to end things off, Steppenwolf is revealed to be Melman all this time. It's pretty obvious too, we see Melman a lot throughout these episodes, and he's seemingly aware of Gus's biker past too. But overall, I really just love the story and the scenario of this episode. As a kid, I didn't really like part 1 much, but it's because of the notion that whenever a part 1 came out, we would have to wait a whole week to watch Kirby again, and we wouldn't get the fight in part 1, so yeah. Now, watching these as I'm older, the 2-parter episodes really are meant to be viewed together, and especially this one, where I feel like they're both 2 parts of a much bigger story. Unlike its title suggestion, it's wildly entertaining, and I like that even this far in the show, we're in 90 plus episodes in, we're still getting new stories and introduced with other side characters that we've known for this long. It's a really great 2-parter, and coupled with the references to a great classic rock band, biker culture, a possible Ben-Hur reference, I think we get something that's truly great here. Number 8, Monster Management. Knuckle Joe returns, and right off the bat, we get one of my favorite shock reveal faces in this entire show.
That's Knuckle Joe!
Maybe the moment from Tuned Out 2, but this one's also incredible. Surprisingly, despite him vowing to be a good guy at the end of Here Comes the Sun, he's working for Nightmare Enterprises, and summoning a ton of weak monsters to fight Kirby and cause trouble? What is going on here? Even Meta Knight's confused by all this. Ultimately though, with an exhausted Kirby, Knuckle Joe wants the strongest monster from Enemy. Knowing Kirby's worn down, Enemy sends over the monster Masher. This is my favorite monster in this entire show. Masher is large, in charge, true to its name, well, the strongest monster in all of Kirby. Talk about a glow up from this dinky Dreamland 2 appearance. When Masher shows up to fight Kirby, things take a hard turn for the worse. He's too worn down to fight, Kirby doesn't stand a chance against this beast. Meta Knight is injured from trying to fight Masher, Tiff actually starts tearing up and things take a really somber approach. Even the music gets somber when all hope seems lost too. And when things couldn't get any worse, Knuckle Joe begins to fight Kirby too. Just when you think all hope is lost, Joe gets Kirby to suck up an attack and turns him into Fighter Kirby. Since Kirby's regained all his strength in the process, suddenly Joe pulls a 180 and hits Masher instead. He insults Dee Dee and then dumps his whole plan on the gang instead. He actually tricked Enemy with a resume, suit, and tie, because he wanted to secretly battle Masher, but he had to wait until the time was absolutely right. With Fighter Kirby's help, the two team up for the first iconic time, and best the beast in a glorious barrage of attacks complete with a huge explosion. It's one of the best fights in the entire show, and it makes this episode a real standout as a result. All of Knuckle Joe's episodes in this show are iconic, and this was his first truly amazing one. And yes, if you're observant, you'll know of another episode I still have yet to talk about. More on that one later. Number 7, Air Ride and Style Part 1 and Part 2. We have another two-parter here, and actually, this is the first 2 parts of the 5-part finale. Yeah, that's enough to make this duo great. Basically, this one begins with DDD frustrated at every failure he's ever had with Kirby. He gets recommended by the anime sales guy to go after Kirby's power source, which is the Warp Star. There's kind of a continuity error with Cartoon Buffoon, as in that episode, DDD seems to understand where the Warp Star was, but anyways, while the Ibram family is having a picnic, DDD decides to come out of nowhere and kidnap Tiff. He interrogates her about the Warp Star before Tuff accidentally spills the beans. And later that evening, a giant UFO shows up over Cappy Town. Side note, I love the animation in this episode. We see a full extent of how far the animation came and how beautiful things look. This sunset along with the UFO are just absolutely gorgeous. Unfortunately, this thing is really deadly, and it starts dropping explosives everywhere. It absolutely demolishes the castle in the process. Tiff's hesitant to call it the Warp Star, knowing it's a trap and that knowing DDD's after it, but duty calls and they have to call it in. Unfortunately for our heroine and Pink Puffball, a Destraya blast knocks them unconscious. They wake up inside Kaboo, where Kaboo explains how the Warp Star needs time to heal. A group of air riders emerges from the Destraya, monsters on special machines, the Formula Star, Rocket Star, Wing Star, and Shadow Star. I gotta say, 2 of these, outside of Drag Race and Nebula Belt, who seriously likes the Formula Star and Rocket Star? I sure as hell don't, but back to the Kirby anime and not my love of Air Ride, Kirby then takes flight on the injured Warp Star and confronts the riders, and thus Part 1 ends. Yeah, this is another episode like Born to be Mild that's better watched back to back, and really this whole finale is best watched back to back like one feature movie. Part 2 is a non-stop action ride that begins with a fight less than a minute into it. Kirby fights against the Formula Star rider, he turns into the Baton Kirby. Wait a minute, Baton Kirby? That's right, this episode actually introduces new copy abilities to the series. This was part of a Japanese-only contest where 4 lucky winners all got their abilities featured here. We get Baton Kirby, who I guess possesses the rider and just tosses him around. Okay then. With the Warp Star out of commission, Meta Knight says he needs to learn to fly other machines, including the Formula Star. The thing is, unfortunately, this machine is super fast, although so is its next opponent, the Rocket Star. And he's carrying one mean flamethrower. Kirby gets the idea to fly over a lake and inhale some water, turning him into the only ability to debut in the anime before the games. That's right, we get Water Kirby. I love this design too. I don't mind the design we got in the games, but to me, this will always be the iconic Water Kirby design. Anyways, we get an awesome beam clash that unfortunately happens to destroy the Formula Star, but it doesn't stop Kirby from defeating this rider from the ground. He then takes the Rocket Star, fights a Wing Star who uses a mace, Wing Guy destroys the rocket, you get the gist. He sucks up the mace and becomes Iron Kirby, which is this awesome gold ball that flattens the rider. And lastly, we get the Shadow Star. Kirby takes the skies, inhales a Top weapon, turns him into Top Kirby. Top destroys Shadow Star, and everything seems saved. That is until the Destraya returns to attack Kaboo. Kirby goes to rescue Tiff from an explosive, but then suddenly, the gang wake up inside Kaboo again. So, here's the gist of what happens. After the initial events of Part 1, Tiff and Kirby were unconscious, and they actually had this entire dream inside of Kaboo. Even Meta Knight is surprised hearing her mention the Air Rider machines, until Kaboo explains that it was actually a training round for Kirby to be able to fly other machines than just the Warp Star. Just then, the real Destraya shows up, starts blasting Kaboo again, and Kirby begins to pilot the sorta recovered Warp Star. He flies up inside the Destraya, Kirby then turns into Crash Kirby, and absolutely nukes the thing from inside this giant Doomsday UFO. Damn, that's 5 transformations in this one episode. There's a good reason why I always held this one in such high regard as a kid. It's kinetic as all hell, the action never lets up for a second. We get 4 brand new abilities introduced in this one, including a first appearance of one that would become a normal copy ability in Return to Dreamland. The episode also just looks downright stellar. I could go on and on. It's one of the best episodes of the show, and it's one that I hold in such high regards. Number 6, Delivery Dilemma. Out of all the episodes to make it here in my top 10, this is one of the ones I hold in the highest regard, while also probably being the safest in that regard as well, in that this is a pretty mundane and standard episode for so much of it. And believe it or not, it's also a cooking-themed episode at that, and I'm gonna say it, it's easily the highest ranked one on this list. Chef Kawasaki, having a slow business day as usual, gets recommended to set up a delivery service by Tiff and that the kids would happily work for him to do so. Dee hears this and he wants to order noodles from him. Only they don't arrive on time whatsoever. Turns out due to some busy delivering schedules, Tiff tasks Kirby with taking noodles to him, and it pains Kirby so much that he can't eat these noodles. I'm serious, most of this episode involves Kirby sitting on noodles, wishing he could eat them instead. It's actually a bit slow, but I think it's a very heartwarming, chill, and very cutesy moment. And I think this show works best with these little subtle moments. We practically see Kirby shut down at one point. Poor guy. Dee does not take this very well at all. He berates Escargoon for ordering noodles later on, getting them much faster than he did, and by the next day, damn. He gets so fed up, he orders a motorbike monster to go do the delivery for him. Only instead, this monster does a ton of other deliveries instead, and practically puts the kids out of a job. Tiff then leaves to look for Kirby, and when she finds him, she apologizes in a cute kind of way for sending Kirby on such a tricky task, though she later praises him when she finds out Kirby never actually ate the noodles after all. It's a really touching moment, and I think really helps this episode a lot, but what happens afterwards elevates it beyond even that. Of course, we know there's a monster and he shows up. He's designed to give Kirby guff. That's just the way this show likes to roll. Meta Knight swoops in out of nowhere and slashes off an exhaust pipe from this monster's bike, which Kirby inhales, and for the first time in this show, we are introduced to Jet Kirby. That's right, the best cooking-themed episode in Kirby isn't a cook episode, it's a freaking jet episode. We get one of the most awesome chases in this show. Kirby dodges everything from this guy, from missiles, extendable arms and legs, only for Kirby to lower his visor, blasts ahead, and he charges up a jet cracker attack and absolutely blows the delivery guy up. Damn, what a first impression this left on me as a young 6 or 7 year old soon-to-be Kirby fan. This was one of my earliest moments of this show. As a kid, I mostly knew Kirby for the Super Smash Bros. Games, in particular 64 and Melee, so seeing this and what he was truly capable of, I was hooked right away. What an iconic moment for me. And it gets better! With his new jet capabilities, he flies to the castle to finally deliver those noodles to Dedede. And since Dedede doesn't want days-old cold noodles, he gives them to Kirby after all. Still wearing the jet hat, we get an adorable send-off for Kirby finally eating the noodles. Yeah, I love this episode. For years, honestly, this was my favorite episode of the whole show, and my sentimental value for it is high. I also remember when this episode re-aired in late 2008, they actually dedicated it to Chef Kawasaki's voice actor, who sadly passed away that year, the late, great Maddie Blaustein. She was taken from this world far too soon, and out of all the Kawasaki episodes, I can't think of a better one to re-air in her memory. Sure, there are plenty of parts of this episode where nothing happens other than Kirby looking at noodles. It seems like something that's almost a joke, but it's done in such a way that's so touching and heartwarming at the same time. The fight scene, the monster, Jet Kirby again. I know I'm probably biased for this, but I absolutely love the Jet Kirby scene. The fact we get such a badass Jet moment, followed by a really, really adorable one too. It's a very special kind of, well, special for me. I recall one time this episode actually gave me a very, very insane wild dream that I actually talked about in a video a long time ago too. It was a really wild moment where I remember waking up and having the dream still envisioned in my eyes. And when an episode can have this kind of special effect on me, there's no way it wasn't going to be in my top 10. I almost want to put this one higher, but out of all the normal or typical Kirby episodes, this is the best of the best in my eyes. I think that the rest of the episodes on this list going forward, they do something very, very special and truly unique that helps edge them above. This episode is very, very formulaic and typical, and that's maybe my one downside of it. But yeah, out of all of the typical episodes of Kirby, this one is the best of the best, and I am proud to say that. Number 5, the chill factor. This episode is very interesting in that it begins very similarly to DDD's snow job. Everyone's swimming, trying to enjoy their summer, before a major cold front comes in. The Cappies think another ice dragon's back, but Tiff says Kirby beat that monster before. And the next day, after it snows again, and everyone goes outside playing in the snow, they find a lone penguin, and soon some more penguins show up. They meet their leader, the Chief Pangy, who's the only one actually capable of speech here. Tiff, however, suspects there's some fishiness going on, and her, Tuff, and Kirby head inside Pangy's iceberg. It's not much, but I actually really like how this place is designed. Kind of reminds me of the Crystal Palace from Paper Mario. They uncover a secret giant cooler that's strong enough to transform Dreamland into a winter paradise. And unfortunately, they're busted. And the Chief wastes no time freezing and capturing them, too. Back in town, the Chief unveils his plans of making Cappy Town their new home, bringing out our frozen heroes as hostages. They then drop a bombshell that's not quite as it seems, cause the Pangy used to live in peace somewhere much colder. However, one day, global warming ended up destroying their home, and as a result, the Pangys began trying to roam and find a new home. And they blame the Cappies for wasting so much energy that caused global warming in the first place. Even Tiff is kind of taken aback by this, and we realize that the Pangy, they're more than your average monster antagonist. Even if they're in the wrong for this, they do have a point. They jail everyone in Cappy Town, but they also foolishly fall for a scheme involving the kids dressing up in cute penguin costumes. Our heroes then go to the castle to confront the Chief, and they get stopped by a guard, who cleverly says that they had the same idea. Yep, that's Meta Knight really in disguise too. Or did he actually skin one of the Pangys to get a perfect disguise? Anyways, the gang rescue DDD. Yeah, I never actually mentioned him up to this point now, but for once, DDD actually shows genuine care for Kirby, and he has nothing he can do about the Pangy invasion. He's a good guy in this episode. The gang confront the Chief and explain not to pick a fight against Kirby, and I love this subtle moment of confidence. You know, as an audience, there's going to be a battle, and everyone admits Kirby's way stronger than he looks, and the Pangy accepts that. Very fast, Kirby turns into Ice Kirby, which doesn't really work too well, as the Pangy only gets stronger from ice. Their next plan is to order a fire monster, which doesn't go far as DDD's account with Nightmare Enterprises is on pause due to not paying off his bills. Instead, he orders a thing of hot sauce, which Kirby takes the Booma Dooma volcano and... This scene is perfect. This scene is so perfect. Pangy admits defeat as the volcano blows, counterbalancing their iceberg, and the Pangy leave to search for a new home. In so many ways, I really adore this episode a lot. I always thought it was a good one since I was a kid, but there's so many more layers I see now. We get a morally gray villain who's not really a monster and has good reasons to do what he does. We have DDD being completely outclassed, helpless, and almost sympathetic to Kirby. And it's a pretty good environmental message too, and a fight that has actual reason to exist, and a monster that doesn't have to die to be defeated. They took many great parts of past episodes, and they turned it into something truly, truly awesome. Number 4, Fright to the Finish. I'm gonna put a spoiler warning for this next one because it's finally time to talk about the finale episode of the entire show. There's a lot to go over with this one. After infiltrating enemy's battleship at the end of Combat Kirby, the Halberd is forced to make an emergency landing. Kirby begins to fight some of the Air Riders, turns into Bomb Kirby in the process. On the phone, the sales guy possesses Dedede and Escargoon, forcing them to kidnap Tiff and taking her to the command center of the ship. It's here that we get one of the biggest bombshell reveals of the entire show, and that the sales guy is really short. Meanwhile, Meta Knight and the others figure out a plan to destroy this juggernaut fortress with a bunch of TNT. Sergeant Cosmos, Kawasaki, and Takori go off to the command center and begin this rather long timer, enough for them to get back to the Halberd and escape. Unfortunately, a few Destrias slip into the fortress, which Knuckle Joe and Satirical warn of the bad news. Halberd gets completely destroyed, much to the worry of everyone, knowing there's a time bomb that's going to go off at any moment. Meta Knight then reveals that the only plan is to use the monster delivery system to go back to their home, knowing also that they have to go back to where the bomb is. Meanwhile, Nightmare kidnaps Tiff and forces Kirby to give chase, turning into Fire Kirby in the process. This is a really weird scene because we see that he's still clearly Bomb Kirby, inhaling and changing abilities on the fly. And apparently the reason this episode feels so bizarre and inconsistent was actually recounted by none other than Masahiro Sakurai for a Famitsu column. See, series director and episode writer Soji Yoshikawa wrote the episode so quickly and rushed it because his wife was actually dying at the time, and Sakurai only found out about this after trying to phone him a lot that Yoshikawa's wife would only pass away a few hours after this. Damn. You know what, though? Given how much stronger Kirby is by this point in the endgame, I don't mind this transformation in a way. I'd actually have liked to see this kind of development gone further, but alas, this is still the finale of the show. Anyways, back to the episode, I just wanted to share that little tidbit. Kirby battles with Nightmare, which goes absolutely nowhere, until Nightmare decides to curse Tiff and Kirby with an actual nightmare of his own. Unfortunately for him, Tiff pulls out the Warp Star in the dream, and Kirby inhales it, turning him into the fabled Star Rod. If that sounds a bit anticlimactic, it kind of is. I do like that he kind of looks like a Christmas tree, though, and it helps that this finale actually aired near Christmas 2006. This gives it a certain holiday vibe for sure. And a best Nightmare escape into the monster delivery system, and then the fortress goes kaboom. What an explosion. The impact of this one is perfect. I love a good explosion, and this one, coupled with Knuckle Joe, Circa, and the remaining Star Warriors wishing them the best after that, it's peak. Miraculously, Curio gets the delivery system running up in time for everyone to arrive back home safely. Except for the sales guy. Yeah, this is something actually only shown in the Japanese version, but he dies in that explosion. Damn, what a brutal way to go out. The gang return to Cappy Town, still sort of destroyed, but as they say, as long as Kirby's around, life will always be an adventure. I honestly love this ending a lot. It feels like a genuine, conclusive ending to the show, while still leaving off some degree of hope and optimism for some sort of continuation later. 20 years later, though, it does feel very unlikely of a reboot, but you know, I still wouldn't be against the idea. I think it's a really, really great ending to the show. For these next couple episodes, I almost want to tie them, because I think that they're all truly, truly spectacular, and the fact we're in the top 3 here, it is very hard to rank a bunch of pretty much 5 out of 5s here. But at number 3, we got Masher 2.0. Oh yeah, it's time to talk about the big one now. I alluded to this earlier. Masher was my favorite monster in this show, and really, what's not to love about him? Monster Management was already a top 10 episode, but they bring it back and bring it up to 12. This episode begins with a new version of Masher absolutely defeating Knuckle Joe. Sword and Blade Knight find Joe one night, and Tiff and Kirby comfort him, taking care of them at their place. I actually really love this little interaction with them, by the way. He explains that Masher returned somehow despite their earlier battle. Meanwhile, Tough, back at Dedede's chamber, finds a strange pendant on the ground, which Dedede later snags. Worth mentioning, Dedede has very little to do with this episode, and in fact, I'd say he's mostly just comic relief more than anything. Meta Knight warns they have way bigger problems than Dedede, and Tough subtly knows there's a monster on the way too. Joe realizes he lost his pendant that his dad gave him, goes off and tries to find it, despite not being in any shape for it. Masher 2.0 eventually lands in Dreamland, and the Knights do not stand a chance. Also, yeah, what a monster! Joe eventually shows up to fight this beast, and eventually gets saved by Kirby. Yeah, this is another one of those rare episodes where the action is constant, and it's on full throttle here. Can you blame it when there's a giant beast here? I mean, damn! And back at the castle, Dedede learns of blueprints for a strength magnifying bracelet, which he and Escargoon eventually build.
Test on me? Oh dear.
Tough manages to seal the amulet and the magnifying bracelet with the help of Fololo and Falala, and with the help of Meta Knight, they even speed away in Dedede's Royal Racer too. They race to the battlefield just in time, and Joe meanwhile asks Kirby to distract Masher. That's right, he turns into Fighter Kirby just to distract. Masher this time means serious business, cause even Kirby can't dent it anymore. After learning that the Strength Amulet is powered by gems, Joe tries a charged Smash Punch, which does not work. And after a few gems later, and still nothing, Masher 2.0 takes the skies, spreads its wings, and then charges a giant Charge Blast. God damn! Even Tiff is horrified at this raw power, as many characters seemingly get caught in this blast. Thankfully, everyone survives, somehow, but all the gems get destroyed in the process. Tough then suggests trying the pendant that Joe got from his father, which actually fits perfectly in his strength magnifying bracelet. Masher 2.0 then prepares yet another blast, to which Joe counters back in an insane beam clash. God, what is this, Goku and Vegeta? Either way, it's awesome. Joe can hardly contain himself against this power, so Fighter Kirby holds him for backup. During this clash, Masher's wings begin to snap, and this is Joe's opportunity to finish off this Titan for good. Joe's pendant begins to fade away, and knowing his new strength, with the help of his father, is now a part inside him. God damn, what an episode. The action in this one is non-stop, and I've said it before, Masher 2.0 is seriously the greatest monster in this show. Colossal in size, nearly indestructible. It's awesome. The Knuckle Joe episodes all got better as they went along, and this is easily the best of the best. For once, Kirby and Joe are legit allies all the way through, and there's a really great camaraderie between our heroes, and again, that beam clash, it may not be on par with Dragon Ball, but it's damn close. And it also reminds me a little bit of the father-son Kamehameha too, my favorite moment in all of Dragon Ball Z. Truly worthy of the top 3. Number 2, Crusade for the Blade. I remember the first time I saw this episode, I actually called my friend Dallas after the fact, and he told me this was just about the greatest episode he has ever seen. And you know what? He's damn well right about that. One night, a mysterious alien shows up in Dreamland, and she gives a beating to Dedede and Escargoon. Meta Knight senses something's up, and that a nobody wouldn't be able to do that to Dedede. She shows up at the castle that night, and runs into Meta Knight shortly after, who turns out she's after. More specifically, she's actually after his sword. She exclaims her name is Satirical, daughter of a star warrior named Garlude. Not long after, Tiff, Tuff, and Kirby sneak out of their room to see what's up, and eventually meets Satirical too. She proceeds to call Meta Knight a thief and a coward for stealing Galaxia, which leads to our heroes getting defensive about their masked friend. Meta Knight becomes too injured from a falling rock, leading to the gang to rendezvous at Kaboo instead. Meta Knight thanks Tiff for her help, and meanwhile, Tuff heads off with medicine, unaware he's being followed by Satirical. Meta Knight then drops some more backstory about Galaxia. It was once such a powerful blade, but it was stolen by Nightmare Enterprises and a monster named Kurisakin. Many years later, Meta Knight and Garlude were sent to retrieve it, but Garlude actually fell in battle in the process. Damn. 2 character flashback episodes and Meta Knight loses 2 close allies. Man, poor guy. Give him a hug. Dedede tries to call NME, who won't send him any monsters due to the account balance problems that I alluded to in the chill factor. However, hearing that there's a strong alien in Dreamland, NME, by coincidence, sends over Kurisakin, the same monster that stole Galaxia all those years back. Tuff returns to Kaboo with medicine, and then Satirical shows up, and what terrible stormtrooper aim that she has! She misses everyone at point-blank range with a machine gun. Sword Knight and Blade Knight fend off Satirical before Meta Knight shows up to do battle with her instead, much to Tiff's annoyance at how weak Meta Knight is right now. Satirical then tries to wield Galaxia, but given that she's not worthy, she just gets a zapping instead. And things get a lot worse though, as the monster Kurisakin shows up not long after, pissed as always and looking to reclaim the Galaxia for itself. Kirby thankfully turns in a sword Kirby looking to battle the beast, but can't make any effort, especially since this monster can regenerate its blades. Satirical then makes one more effort to get the sword and learns the truth. Turns out Garlude actually sacrificed herself to toss the sword to Meta Knight, knowing that she would pass in the process. Meta Knight was not a traitor, and he respected her dearly. Satirical, realizing now that this may be the only choice to defeat the beast, she says she's willing to sacrifice herself too if that's what it takes. Unfortunately, Kurosakin gets the sword anyway, for all of about 2 seconds before Meta Knight launches a rocket its way. Kirby finally picks up the sword, and after a very cool beam of light, signifying a transformation into Galaxia Kirby once again, unleashes one final sword beam and destroys Kurosakin instantly. What an awesome moment indeed. I've said it before so many times, but damn, I love this episode. Satirical is an awesome character, and I'm so glad she got to return for the finale as well. And I think it also helps that she's voiced by Veronica Taylor, too. Ash Ketchum's original voice actor in Pokemon.
I've waited a long time for this.
It's a really, truly awesome backstory episode, and they later made Galaxia the canon name for this sword in later games such as Smash Bros. Brawl and Kirby's Epic Yarn. And also, unlike so many other episodes, I'm glad this one exists in pretty high quality too, as it's actually included in the Kirby's Dream Collection game on the Wii. Not gonna lie, I sometimes pop this disc in just to watch this episode on the big screen. It looks great that way, and yeah, it's my runner-up greatest episode of this show. What more do I need to say? And with that, we have finally reached the last episodes. Yeah, that's right. For this top spot, we have the final two-parter of the show that I have yet to talk about. And in many ways, this may be the most unique two-parter on the list. At number 1, we have the double-parter Prediction Predicament. It begins with Dedede having fire nightmares that lead him to being afraid of Kirby. I find this hilarious in hindsight. He goes out to Mabel, the fortune teller, about what to do, and she insists on him doing some good deeds for once, because he promised to build a playground for the kids, and he doesn't really do that. I like this little bit of character building too, as Samo then lets the kids know that Mabel isn't really a fortune teller, but rather just a helpful counselor character. Meanwhile, Tuff decides just to get the idea to scare the pants off Dedede instead, which is actually what leads him to ordering an ice monster, this legally distinct pile swine looking thing. Yeah, a monster fight in part 1, and surprisingly Kirby can't inhale this ice. Looking back on it, I find it odd how inconsistent the ice ability is. He couldn't get ice from Ice Dragon besides that shard attack. He doesn't even turn into Ice Kirby here. When all hope seems lost, Meta Knight does the Meta Knight thing and hands Kirby a torch. The monster fight is short-lived, and then Dedede is scared again looking at Fire Kirby. Mabel then tells him that Kirby's not a threat and that he should go to the castle telescope instead. Turns out, Dedede was having nightmares about a faraway asteroid this entire time. It's sure unlikely to hit Dreamland, or so we think, and that the asteroid's actually controlled by NME. This is where part 2 begins, and just wow. Dedede is still an ass sore about the whole playground thing, something that Mabel calls him out as selfish for, while saying the asteroid will get closer. Meanwhile, Tiff notices that something is horribly not right, as even Meta Knight points that out. The next day, Escargoon points out that the asteroid's now as big as the sun in the sky, and seemingly getting closer and closer by the day. Eventually, as fear begins to loom in Cappy Town, everyone goes to Kaboo to ask what can be done. And then, to the shock of everyone, he says this.
When the asteroid strikes, all will be destroyed.
This is a really heart-wrenching scene. Everyone is basically told that their fate is sealed and that there's nothing that can be done. Most of the Cappies leave and just try to make the most of what time they have left, in which Tiff decides she wants to take action instead. And then the next day, a very harsh red envelops the entire episode. I love Majora's Mask, and this episode gives me major Majora's Mask vibes. I like that every character deals with this differently. Tiff and Meta Knight want to fight this. They know whether it's a losing battle or not. They decide that it's better to die fighting than to not do anything at all. Tuff and some of the other kids want to just have fun and goof around until the end, and actually, so does Dedede. And Dedede's pretty funny in these moments, too. Escargoon decides he wants to go see his mother in his final moments, yet Dedede holds this off. Eventually, all the Cappies decide to go to the castle grounds seeking higher ground shelter, and everyone delivers some really heartwarming final speeches and confessions. I think every emotion is just on full display here. It's oftentimes kind of funny and other times very sad. It really makes you wonder what these final moments would be like at World's End. What would you do in these final moments? There's a moment where Dedede punches Escargoon, and he actually breaks down crying, admitting he may never feel that again. It's really emotional, actually. Escargoon then tells Dedede that he was completely selfish for not building that playground, and in the face of danger, he decides to go do that. Dedede kidnaps Kirby, for some reason, who's still at his house, and he goes to build a new playground. What we get here might be the most powerful, touching moment of the entire show. In an homage to the 1952 film Curio, of all things a movie about someone diagnosed with terminal cancer enjoying their final moments, Dedede and Kirby share one moment on the swing set together, fully accepting that this is their fate. It's a really, really touching and powerful scene. Of course, this is Kirby, and we sort of get a fight. As I glossed over earlier, Tiff and Meta Knight get this idea to launch cannonballs at the asteroid and attempt to steer the trajectory just far enough away so that it won't hit Dreamland. It's a little bit far-fetched, but they do need to give this episode a happier ending. Unfortunately, the cannonballs miss the asteroid, but thanks to it kicking up a massive wind gust, Kirby happens to fly by the castle. Tiff calls the warp star, Dedede gets stuck on a castle spire, Kirby does his Kirby thing and miraculously redirects the asteroid, only managing to burn Dedede in the process. It's a weird ending, and honestly, probably the only thing I'm not too big on with this episode, but the way I see it, everyone accepted their fate anyway. They know that this is their only shot to save themselves and the world that they know and love. They're gonna take that shot even if it means going down in a blaze of glory. And in that regard, yeah, this episode is really, really special. As a kid, I actually didn't understand this one. But as an adult, I think it's something that's truly unique and simply incredible. It's kind of wild that a deep emotional episode like this is in a Kirby anime of all things. But I'm glad it is, because, yeah, Prediction Predicament, it's my favorite episode of the entire show. With all that being said, thank you everyone for watching this video. I've been a fan of Kirby Right Back At Ya pretty much my entire life, and it's a show that means so much to me, and I've wanted to take a moment to talk about this one for a long time. If you stuck around to watch this one, I thank you. I thank you for listening to me ramble about one of my favorite shows, and if you like this show as much as I do, I'd love to hear what you think. What are some of your favorite episodes? Let me know down in the comments. With all that being said, thanks everyone, and I'll see you guys next time when I decide to do something hopefully not this crazy again. Have yourselves a great day, and peace out.